Okay, we are live and broadcasting to all the ships at sea, as the radio guy says. It's Wednesday, September 25th. This is the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. I want to start with additions or deletions to the agenda. I know things have been shuffled around a lot, so we're to get through that. John, do you want to start?
Sure. Just a couple notes for the board. We had a conversation yesterday about canceling our meeting on the 9th, and moving the items that were on the 9th, some of which would be affected on this agenda, to the 10th. Just a note for the board: in order to maintain our noticing, we'll have to have 3 commissioners still available on the 9th to open up the public hearing and continue the items. Otherwise, we'll have to renotice those items, and they'd have to go to the 23rd. I have been able to contact at least 3 of you who would be willing to come in on the 9th to do that at this point. So if we, just as you get to the items that we're either going to have second reading on October 9th or be continued, we'll be doing that to the we will be doing those to the 9th, and we'll have to open up the meeting on the 9th and continue them to the 10th.
Will we also have entertain public comment if public comes on the
Yes.
9th? Okay, so we would have to entertain public comment, and starting at noon. We're going to start like we would a regular meeting at noon, and then continue the whole gamut until the 10th the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, that's how it has to be done for notice, proper noticing. But we also have an opportunity to tell the public in the next week that this is what we're doing, so hopefully people will be slightly less baffled than I am.
And then,
Great.
I'm sorry.
John is still, oh, sorry, George.
We could do this on Tuesday, but on future agendas. So I won't be here on the 10th.
You won't be here on the 10th, or you will?
I will not.
You will not be here on the 10th. Okay.
Okay, anything else you have on?
The only other item that came up was on today's consent item, single reading, the resolution endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency, request for regional collaboration. There has been a request to move that to the end of the agenda because there are some of the, I think, students from the middle school and possibly high school that want to attend for your reading of that.
Proponents coming in for that. Okay.
So I have a question on that. I don't have a problem doing that, but if we're done with our meeting and they're not here, will we still hear it, or do we have to wait for them to get here, or what's the plan?
That would be up to the board.
Right. Hopefully they'll get here sooner, and we won't end so quickly, but we'll see.
Okay.
But they're planning on being here at 2:15 or something like that.
Well, was there any members of the public who are here for the climate action item to be heard at the beginning of the meeting?
If there are, they can speak in public and open public comment beforehand, or they can stick around or come back. Sorry for the inconvenience, but we're trying to convenience all the young advocates who are coming from the schools.
That's all I had on additions and
thanks
deletions.
Thanks for bringing that
So
up.
do we need a motion to move that to the end of the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah. So I will move item number 2 to the end of the agenda.
Second?
Got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay. If that's all you've got, we're going to, any other public board agenda changes? Okay, public comment up next. If you want to make a public comment, we limit them to 3 minutes. Come on down, give us your name. You have to come to the microphone so we can get you on the record.
Jim Vishanti, just a question.
Great, sure.
Is the solar farm being continued to another date?
I don't know if
Is
that
mic
mic's on.
on?
Push the button on your microphone
The
if
little
you don't
red
mind,
light
Jim.
needs-
Thanks for coming in. Yes, the plan is to continue that. It's down here on our item number 11.
And the board had talked yesterday about continuing that to November 13th.
November 13th? November 13th,
Date we
yeah.
set, special meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
That-
thanks,
that's-
Jim.
That's all I wanted to
yeah.
know. It was originally on the agenda.
Right, it was on for today, it got continued, and the date moved around, so.
Thank you.
Is it November 13th or October?
Well, that's a
23rd?
Sunday. If it's October 13th, that's a Sunday.
I'm sorry, let me just pull it up here.
October 23rd is what I thought, but let's.
No, that's
be
when it was, and then we moved it to
yeah.
a special meeting date, I thought.
Thank you, 11/13.
We've moved it to a date that
We'll
we're
figure
not
this out.
certain of.
Yeah. We'll talk about it when we get to
So
that,
anyway,
but it is.
James, if you're still here, it's
Remember when it
continued.
was,
We'll,
George?
you will
It'd
notify
be
you, make
November
sure.
16th. then,
Thank you
if
for
that's
coming
the-
in. I appreciate you coming in today.
November 16th is a Saturday. November 13th is a Wednesday.
Yeah, November 13th is when we. had,
November, not October.
Yeah.
November, yes.
13th. Okay, there we go.
So-
There you have it.
And I think it's helpful to just say that, we're dedicating a special meeting on November 16th to that topic, or 13th, Wednesday, November 13th, exclusively to that topic,
Right.
to start at, I believe, 10 a.m. We decided to give the entire day to allow for presentations, public comment,
Right.
et cetera.
There seem to be a lot of people who want to speak up on that, so we're gonna devote that meeting on that day. Okay, now that that's been cleared up, open public comment. Come on down,
Right here?
please. Have a seat.
Okay. Hi, for the record, my name is Tony Kronenberg, and I just got out of the pool, so I apologize for my hair being wet, but the recreation center just reopened on Monday, so we had to hop over there first thing this morning. But three things. One is, first I wanted to thank the Pickens County Commissioners very much for the Airport Advisory Committee outreach that you're doing. It is producing, I believe, stellar results. And the information that is being provided and the questions that are being asked and the answers that are being given, that I just want you to know that the group is doing a tremendous job. If it wasn't for the Pickens County Commissioners doing that community outreach, we wouldn't have had this consensus that is developing. The second thing is, I don't know if you've had time to go over to the new W Hotel, but it's definitely right on the top of the list. It's right up there, believe it or not, with the John Denver Sanctuary Park and the Maroon Bells Tour. When you get to the top of the rooftop, the views up there are spectacular. Everyone, when we're down here, was like, oh, look how beautiful everything is. When you go up to the rooftop and you see the top of the mountains, everywhere from Independence Pass, it really does Aspen kudos. So I just want to ask everyone to please go up there. It's open to the public. Just take the elevator up and with the fall colors. And then the third thing is that today on your consent calendar that you've pushed back to this afternoon, you're having the resolution endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency and requesting regional collaboration to counter climate change and preserve a flourishing environment. I wanted to say thank you again very much for that. And that also, I would like to see if we could focus on some of our environmental issues locally. And one of them has to do, of course, with the entrance to Aspen. And the city of Aspen, even though they've endorsed the climate emergency action plan, they don't have it as one of their top goals to reduce the greenhouse gases and the carbon and the congestion and everything between the first stoplight at the airport all the way into the roundabout. So at some point in time, if the county commissioners could produce a resolution that would encourage the city of Aspen to step forward and to take care of the environmental crises that we have right at our doorstep. And one of the concerns that I have is within the near future with the expansion of the airport, with the development of the CMC housing, development of the firehouse housing, development of Burlingame Ranch 3, and development of the lumberyard, easily there's going to be 1,000 people accessing that stretch of the highway in front of the airport every single day, and we don't have any real solutions to address that. So that's my local environmental crisis, is the entrance to Aspen, beginning at the airport, actually from Brush Creek all the way down. And then, and again, I went to the council, and I will stay forward with that request to the council. But if the county commissioners could put a little meat behind this resolution, something locally, and ask the city council if they could address the entrance to Aspen. So
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
I know that sounds very easy, but
We'll be happy to ask them.
okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we're still open for public comment. Anybody else would like to come on down?
Hi, my name is Ziska Childs.
Hi, Ziska.
Hi, guys. Now for the flip side. And again, it's concerning the climate emergency that you will be voting on later today. And let me say, don't you dare do it without committing to really deep, directed action, and much deeper than what we've been doing so far. Because an emergency is exactly that. And it will take an amount of political will, which I have yet to see in my 50 years in this town. Because it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be popular, it's going to be extremely difficult, and it's going to put all of your political lives on the edge. What I want to see from you guys is I want to see you to start with the county. I want every single one of your vehicles to be EV vehicles. Every last one of them. Carpooling is not enough. I want to see every single building that's owned by the county be a net zero building. We've known how to do it since Amory Levins built his in 1979. It's not new technology. We've known how to do it. We just haven't had the political will or the desire to do it. This list is very, very long, and I could bore you with it for a lot longer than 3 minutes. Let's go on to the Pitkin County dump. You can take all that wooden construction waste, put it into a pyrolyzer, turn it into biochar, instead of paying Morgan Williams to bring his trucks of biochar up here. We can put it into the compost that we already have and we're already selling, make money doing that and reduce land waste at the same time. But you gotta buy the pyrolyzer to do it. The list goes on and on and on. And that's what it's gonna take. Not just lip service, because if it's gonna be lip service, you're gonna hear so many letters to the editor from me, you're gonna get sick of it. I wanna see action. And I wanna see action by putting the county on the front line and everything that you personally have control of county commissioners, that's owned by the county, that's run by the county, go climate emergency first. Thank you.
Thanks, Ziska.
Ziska, thank you. Okay, public comment is still open. Come on down. Sandy. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Sandy Mulcahy, and in 4 years of trying to keep our home, I have pointed out the innumerable due process violations that were made by APSHA. And APSHA has violated, as if you read the paper today, our free speech. I have 4 points. 1, no rulings have ever addressed APSHA's illegal, premature notice of violation that was sent out and then covered by APSHA's changing its rules in October, first time in 7 years. 2, Judge Selden failed to follow court procedures. A court order required a case management conference be held with Lee because he was pro se. That was totally ignored. 3, this case was filed illegally under an expedited CRCP 16.1, which claims must be less than $100,000. The lot itself we paid $150 for. The court's failure to enforce its own rules created a miscarriage of justice. In Judge Selden's June order, he stated the home we built needed to be occupied by a deserving family. How does he know that? Did he know that my husband shortened his life dealing with cancer to help Lee get his CO? Anyway, there's never been a hearing. He must not be familiar with Exodus 22, which states, "Do not take advantage of a widow or an orphan. If you do, and they cry out to me, I will certainly hear their cry. My anger will be aroused, and I will kill you with the sword." I am crying out to God, and I don't know what God is going to do. But this widow, 84 years old, is not complying. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Public comment?
He's waiting for you to call on him.
Come on down, please.
My name is Lee Mulcahy, and I am super grateful for many things, but I just want to point out that I do have my compliance records, and I'm ready to show compliance as an artist anytime. When I went in October of 2015, the deputy director marched out and said they were going to refuse. They refused to look at these records based on the fact that I had missed the notice of violation. But as my mom pointed out, that was issued prematurely. So, you know, it's really unfortunate because now 4 years later, all we've done is spent out hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're still here. We're not giving up. I'm grateful to have a mom that's a pistol. I'm grateful that this was a lawsuit that has not ever been covered by the Aspen Times. The reporter from the Aspen Times was there when the police were called, and I was removed 3 times. I'm very grateful that the page of the paper said, "Court finds that APSHA limited Mulcahy's free speech." Wow, guys, that's significant, and that's the tip of the iceberg with APSHA. The judge didn't even have a lot of the transcripts because APSHA didn't release them until recently, and they lost the most important one. So I would like to settle this. I don't want to take this to the Court of Appeals, and here's the danger for you guys. It's 2 of you guys on the APSHA board, but we love this community. I know you do. I even know you do. And this is going to be highly embarrassing for APSHA. I know that the judge said that he doesn't have a problem with loud, defiant, and personal, but if we could just remove those words, we don't need to go to the Supreme Court. But guys, the Supreme Court of Colorado says that our Constitution, our state Constitution, we have greater freedom of speech than the First Amendment. That's huge. I just think that the word defiant can be interpreted real broadly, and that would make it unconstitutional. When the government, your baby, you created APSHA, and 2 of you guys are on it, is found by the judicial system to be violating our Bill of Rights, our Constitution, we got to stand up and pay attention. And we got to look at all these things an 84-year-old widow is saying. Because Judge Selden, he was your assistant Pitkin County attorney. He dealt with Tom Smith a long time. It's just like when the police investigate themselves, nothing happens. We're asking the court to delay, the receiver, which means like a, God forbid, but a SWAT team coming down and killing 2 innocent people because we won't comply. We've asked Judge Selden to delay appointing the receiver until after the Supreme Court rules. We just submitted an emergency stay request until after our settlement is voted on by APSHA. And I'm very grateful to have a mom that is proposing $100,000 to charity just to settle this, to move on, to let me show compliance to the new compliance officer, and 3,000 public service hours. I love you. I love you. I hope we can. I'm so happy that you are, and grateful that you want to de-escalate this situation. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't run over.
Thanks, Lee. More public comment? Anybody else would like to come up? I'm going to move on to the next thing if we don't have any public comment. Okay, we're going to go to commissioner comments now. Anyone have something they'd like to add?
I just want to just quickly tell people enjoy it out there. It's gorgeous. The days are beautiful. winter will be here before we know it. As Kelly said yesterday when we looked up the pass, the snow was gone from the pass that we could see, so she was sure it was going to snow last night, just to make up for that difference. So it could be any night, could be any day, so please get out there, enjoy the last of this beautiful, the colors that we have in this beautiful sunshine, and be safe.
Okay, Steve?
Last Saturday, I got to participate in to me, a wonderful event. It was a barbed wire removal project. It was on the boundary line between Sky Mountain Park and the airport property, where in the wintertime, elk are always coming down off the hill and in the fields there behind the airport. And so we removed about maybe close to half a mile of barbed wire fence. We were very short-handed on the crew that was up there, but it was members of, was sponsored by Picken County Open Space and Trails and the Wilderness Workshop. And at the same time, there were more than 70 people working on the Hanging Lake volunteer project in Glenwood Canyon. So I think that's why we ended up with not as many being eager to roll up barbed wire, but I've been working with barbed wire since I was 13 years old, and I'm like one of the resident experts on it, so I was glad to.
Your hands.
My hands are fine, my arms get hacked up quite a bit, but. So anyhow, the elk are especially going to be very much happier when they go through that area this winter. And it was a wonderful fall day working up along in the vicinity of the airline mountain bike trail. Great views from up there, so just wanted to pass that on, that work's been done, and I'm glad I got to participate.
Thank you for participating in that. Kelly, you had something?
Just a reminder that I'll be leaving before our land use in order to get on the road.
Enjoy that drive.
Conference
It'll be
in
beautiful.
Winter Park?
Winter Park.
Right, great, thank you.
Safe.
Thank you for attending that. George?
I'm good.
I had a few things here. One is reading the paper today. I know some of us have been invited to the sort of Mountain Towns Climate Conference over in Park City this weekend, and I opted not to go to it, and I appreciate that the city's going. I just wanted to suggest that they can go online to thegoodtraveler.org and buy carbon offsets for their air travel and their road travel, and it's something I'd like to see the county do. And the city do or anybody who travels for a very reasonable and low cost. You can actually buy a carbon offset that will go toward sequestering carbon through approved and accredited places around the country and the world. So it's something I'm going to be talking more about in the near future. And I'm going to encourage the city to sign up and get their carbon credits. Anybody can go on to Get the Good Traveler app. It's kind of fun. You can put in your air travel from destination to destination, and it'll tell you what your offsets would be. It's about $2 per 1,000 miles of air travel. So a trip to Marrakesh and back would be something like $20 in carbon offsets. It doesn't seem like much, but we're assured it makes a difference. That organization is actually managed and approved by Rocky Mountain Institute, which gives it some credibility, certainly in this valley, if not globally. That's my plug there. Second one is on the Elmo. If we can pull up the Elmo upcoming, public should know that the college fair is coming. This is 15 years old now. The Colorado Western Slope College Fair was started in Aspen by Kathy Klug in order to get colleges from all over the country to come and visit our kids. She had the brilliant idea, with the help of some friends, to invite all of the schools on the Western Slope, the rural schools on the Western Slope, to join. And they thought they were going to get 50 colleges from around the country to come and visit us. Now they have 248, 15 years later, colleges begging to come and present on their programs to kids from all across. 81 different communities across the Western Slope are sending buses of kids to our college fair. I do know also that they're looking for volunteers to help make it happen on Saturday the 5th of October, and then the event's on the 6th. They're looking for 100 volunteers. I know they have some already, but if anybody wants to help, John's probably done it. We're going to be there. Anybody who has kids in the community, but it's pretty cool. The sign-up ended this year, and Harvard called and begged to be allowed to come, which is pretty interesting. But then American Airlines Flight School is coming. We've got so many different groups coming to talk about all the different options you have after high school, not just college, but junior colleges, airline flight schools, trade schools, and then the ubiquity of colleges that we've never even heard of and the ones we have heard of are all going to be there. And I think the track record now across the Western Slope for kids having options rather than going into the coal mine like Dad and Grandpa, they have other options before them. At least they know there's a bigger world out there. So it makes a difference far beyond our community. So if you see Kathy Klug, give her a hug and thank her and her team. And if you can help out, that'd be great. Or if you know a kid somewhere on the Western Slope who could use a little eye-opener, have them come up on October 6th. Okay, the final thing I'm going to bring up, not running the clock out here, is yesterday the board, with the Open Space Board, went to the Sunfire Ranch and took a tour, it's down on the Crystal River. It's a spectacular ranch. Our open space program is in the process of acquiring a conservation easement. And we took a tour. It was fantastic. The thing I wanted to talk about was that the vision of Jason Sewell and his family goes back to the homesteaders on that property. It's been 125 years his family's been on that ranch. And his vision for developing it in a very sensible way going forward with conservation easements and limited development is that he wants his family to be on the property 125 years from now. And when you think about, I don't think I've heard from a single developer or any citizen of Aspen who's thinking 125 years ahead. And I just wanted to say how that struck me and has been with me ever since we had this tour. And another thing that came up that I thought was really interesting is that they've been reclaiming some forest land up there by hand. They cut, I think, 200 acres of juniper and pinyon, cut it back to create habitat for elk and deer. They did it by hand. They didn't take in heavy equipment and mow the thing down. They didn't bring in a lot of heavy trucks. They did the way it was done in the old days. They went and they spent a few years with the help of the rifle corrections facility guys. I think they did it over 3 or 4 years, and they've done an incredible job restoring habitat, creating new habitat, and it's a great model for anybody thinking of cutting down trees. I just want to point that out. That's it for commissioner comments, for me anyway. We can move on to consent items. Getting worse. We have a resolution to appoint citizen board members. Is Charlotte here? She's not, but John's here.
No, but this resolution was prepared based on board guidance in a work session following interviews and appointment decisions. And I know Steve usually likes to read off the list, so I don't want to preempt him.
Oh, well, Steve, you're on. Take it away.
So on our list, we have several people, and we thank them in advance for their volunteering for these different boards. Jasmine Tiger, a regular member of the Planning and Zoning Board. Brenda O'Connor, a regular member of the Citizen Grant Review Committee. Jeannie Siebold, regular member of the Board of Health. Linda Vieira, alternate member of the Board of Health. And that's what's on the resolution. Now, John, I have a question because on the AIS there is Ashley McGee's name for Senior Services Council. And I thought we had already officially appointed her, but she's not on the resolution.
Let's see if Charlotte's listening. If
she could be on a previous, yeah. So that Ashley McGee. Thank you all.
And I would make a motion to approve this resolution appointing those members to those boards.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a second. We need to wait. And yeah, I know. It's great. We've got a strong group of women coming on our boards. So can we just approve this and then figure out the Ashley situation?
Have to probably
Yeah,
bring
we
it
could
back.
do another one if we have to.
All right.
Yeah, I think she was already appointed.
I think she might already be on there, so in this case, she gets a double approval. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks, Steve, for bringing that up. Our citizens boards are incredibly important to the community and to us to help make everything work. We're really grateful for people stepping up, and if you're at all interested, you'll see postings in the paper regarding citizen board openings. And please consider it. Okay, moving on to individual consideration items. Set for public hearings on October 9th, on the 9th of which we're planning to continue them to the 10th. We've got a resolution authorizing a submission of a grant application to Great Outdoors Colorado for construction of a playground at the Basalt Vista Affordable Housing Community, and if awarded, approving a grant agreement with GOCO to accept the funds. GOCO being Great Outdoors Colorado. Thank you.
Hi, Phyllis Mattice, Deputy County Manager, and with me.
Bo Blodgett, AmeriCorps Vista, serving at Habitat for Humanity.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
And Bo initiated this. This is a grant for a playground at the Basalt Vista community. It's been identified. The property has always been identified. So Bo's been working on a budget and identifying how to get funds. GOCO has a separate pot of funds for playgrounds, and because I checked with our open space to make sure we're not competing, and we're not. This is just one playground. So that's the piece I know, and Bo, you can explain a little bit more if you'd like.
Yeah, so Basalt Vista, 27 affordable homes, net zero for teachers and workforce in the area. Basically, we have funding for the homes. We have funding for to make these beautiful homes for our future homeowners, but we need this piece. We need a playground. We need some place for children, family, and community to gather, and this grant would allow us to complete this project and make a really nice, livable space for our future homeowners.
And the matching dollars that are needed will come from Habitat's fundraising.
Absolutely, Habitat, and then a piece of it, we can also count the land that was donated to us.
A question.
Yeah, please, Patty.
So it's a great project. You know, we've been down there, we've seen it, many of us have helped work on it. It's going to be amazing when it's full and full of vitality and life. How many families, how many units, so that the community knows how many amazing children this playground will be serving?
So we expect, so there's 27 units. So we expect about 100 individuals and maybe around 40 children.
Just the first family that moved in just had a baby too, didn't
Absolutely.
they?
So yeah, currently there are three children in the 4 homes that are occupied.
Perfect. It's great. And so, yeah, I look forward to this, and hopefully GOCO will come through. They usually find worthy projects here in the Roaring Fork Valley, and I think this is an exceptional spot for it. So thank you for thinking of it and doing the work.
Thank you.
Kelly?
Yeah, agreed. This is a wonderful project. I would suggest, given what that site layout is like, it's very exposed, and to try and maximize your shade opportunities so that the families can get the maximum use out of that throughout the year.
It was hot there the day we were there.
And I know our playground doesn't have a lot of shade where I live, so there's sort of a middle of the day we can't use it.
Go there.
They would benefit from some good shade.
We're going to have 2 or 3 shade shelters and trees and stuff like that in the area. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
And right now, the final application is being worked on. This is now delayed for second reading, I understand, until the 23rd.
What we'll be doing is we will be moving it to, if we approve it today, it'll be first reading set for public hearing on October 9th. On October 9th, we will be having a meeting that starts at noon to continue it until the 10th for the second reading and public comment.
till October 10th.
Right.
But we have to hear it again on the 9th to move it to the 10th.
Gotcha. Okay. The deadline for the grant is the 24th.
Great.
So we want to make sure we tried to get in advance enough so that we're teed up. Right now, the dollar amount's looking like 142,000 about. I wrote the resolution to be up to 160,000, so we had a little bit of room in case the dollars were moving as Bo was working the final budget.
Perfect.
Great.
I will make a motion.
I wanted to just, before you do, I just want to say this is it's a community gathering space, incorporates nature so that children can safely grow through play while developing an appreciation for nature and the outdoors. The park will consist of play structures, shade shelters, tables, benches, small lawn and trees, and also there's something about a sledding hill. It'll be a net zero sledding hill, right? You have to walk up. In other words, the area surrounding the park will utilize natural grass, and the entire project will be irrigated from non-potable ditch water. Just from your application, it's good that people know what we can expect.
Absolutely.
Will it have a catapult? Slingshots? What
No
kind of play
catapult.
structures?
So the play structures are going to be, they're going to be sort of concrete form, basically rock kind of structures, but produced in a factory to just kind of blend in with the natural surroundings.
And they don't get hot.
Like
They don't get
climbing
hot.
and
Yeah.
seesaws and swings and stuff like
There's
that.
going to be a slide, there's going to be a tunnel, and some balance beams and such like that. So
Okay.
very kind of
Greg, if
natural
you're really
feel.
good, we'll let you go down and play.
Will I fit? Okay, thank you. We had a
A
motion.
motion to approve.
I will second.
We have a second. All in, you want to comment?
Further
comment. Okay.
I just recalled when we were planning a playground over by the Basalt Elementary School, there was someone who spoke who was from New Hampshire, and they had done their master's degree on studying playgrounds and what kids liked in playgrounds. They figured out that the things that they liked most were a big pile of sand and dirt, a bunch of sticks, and running water. And they could create all the different things they wanted out of that. So it sounds like you're close to that with sort of rocks and board kind of structure that.
Yeah.
But if there could be an element that the kids could create things in there too, that
There
would be
actually is. I'm not sure if I included that, but there's a chalk wall. So there'll be sort of an element for kids who are more creative and don't want to necessarily physically play, something for them to do as well.
Mhm.
We should note that study was sponsored by Tide, the laundry detergent company.
The net zero.
that
Or is it
fake news?
biodegradable? Is it available to members of the public at that point? So say the preschool that's just down the street, if the older kids could walk up and use it during the day? Or
Yeah, it's available.
Perfect.
Yeah.
so it's
Part
shared
of the GoCo grant is making it available to the
with
larger
the neighbors?
community.
Perfect, because
And-
there is a local preschool just down the hill, so that would be great.
Great. Sounds good. We've got a motion.
And a
we've got
second.
discussion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye, thank
Aye.
you,
Aye.
thanks, good to see you.
Thanks for
Good
coming in.
luck.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Bo. Good
Greg,
to see you. Sir.
if I could jump in, Charlotte was on her way down. The senior services applicant was supposed to be included, and so there would be an opportunity if the board wanted to reconsider that item and just add her in verbally. We'll prepare the resolution to that effect.
Okay. Do
I
I need
apologize
a
for the
motion to
miss
amend
there.
the
You need
resolution?
it done by,
Motion to
I'll move to
Whoa,
I will move to reconsider the motion, the resolution.
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor on reconsidering?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I'll move to add Ashley McGee's name as an appointee to the Senior Services Council.
I will second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye?
aye,
Okay.
thank you, thanks
Got it.
Charlotte.
Sorry
And
about
then
that.
move to
You added
approve
her
it.
name to the list, so a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
I need that motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as amended, adding Ashley's name.
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
More of it. No further
Do we need
conversation.
anything else, or are we done with it?
Thank you.
Okay, we're
All
good.
right.
Oh, Robert.
Oh.
Rules. God.
It's a
So
good
it's now
thing you're here
Robert-
today.
Robert Healy.
All right, thank you. Moving right along, we've got go. What we have next is the resolution canceling certain uncollectible taxes levied on personal property, including but not limited to mobile homes in Pitkin County. And we have Ann here.
Good afternoon. I am Ann Driggers, Pitkin County Treasurer, and with me I have Sid Tovney, who is the Chief Deputy Treasurer, and this is her first BOCC meeting.
Welcome, Sid.
I promise you will be very
See here.
pleased to
Is your
Bring
microphone?
chocolate. Working.
Turn your mic on or make sure it's on, just to make sure she's broadcasting
She is.
globally. Thank you. All right.
All right. We're here to present to you a request to cancel certain uncollectible taxes that are levied on personal property, including but not limited to mobile homes, which is what the state statute says. So per the state statute 3910.114.2a, the BOCC is permitted to cancel property taxes that we have deemed uncollectible. There is an attachment here that shows you all of the property taxes that we are requesting to be canceled in the resolution. As you can see, they date back a number of years, and if needed, Sid can talk to the efforts that have been made in order to collect those property taxes. The total amount is just shy of $6,000, which is relatively small. That amount would be spread amongst all of the districts and the municipalities as well as the counties, so the impact on any individual district or municipality or county budget is insignificant. So,
George?
A couple of questions. So I see one. Let's look at Plum Media LLC, and they stopped paying personal property taxes starting in 2013.
Correct.
And then went on to 14, 15. So, what sort of recourse do we have immediately after that first year to try to collect taxes versus having that continue on year after year after year, and then to the point where we're at today?
So what happens on an annual basis is any of the personal property taxes, be it business, which all of these are businesses, versus the personal property taxes. They are published in the newspaper. We send out distraint warrants with a deputy from the sheriff's office. And majority of the taxes then, one, either come in or it is discovered that the entity is out of business and is gone. If they are out of business and they're gone, and they don't file the declaration with the assessor that they have gone out of business, the assessor continues to assess and continues to bill. So in the case of most of these, they went out of business the year that they're delinquent for here, and we're already gone.
Mm-hmm.
But especially in the case of Plum Media, as you said, the assessor continues to bill, therefore bills continue to come to the treasurers, and we continue to be unable to collect.
Yeah, it just seems like there's maybe a gap in terms of communication between the assessors and the treasurer's office. It seems like someone would have been able to go out to that space and realize that business is no longer there, and then would have made the treasurer's job simpler instead of having to carry it over year after year after year.
And I can't speak for the assessor's process on businesses that are discovered to be out of business and gone, but I do know it's a number of years before they can stop assessing and stop pushing that tax roll over to the treasurers for us to attempt to collect on, as you said, something that nothing is there for.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
We do work pretty closely with the assessor, and I've gotten better over the years.
that we try not to let it go over the 2-year limit there before we address it, and we try to do exactly that, get something more proactively done.
Steve?
The way I'm reading this with regards to mobile homes, I'm reading that we cannot charge personal property tax on mobile homes. The state has said it's uncollectible. None of these are mobile homes, but in passing this resolution, are we somehow changing the tax status of people with mobile homes?
No, this is just the language that is taken directly out of the state statute. And that's why I included the mobile home piece, even though there aren't any mobile homes in there. So this is just a verbatim out of the state statute.
Okay, so do people with mobile homes, they pay a motor vehicle tax, is that correct, and not a property tax? Is that
Mobile
what this is
homes,
kind of saying?
mobile homes do have, it's somewhat equivalent to a real estate tax.
Well, it's the personal property tax for the belonging there.
To a mobile home, to a manufactured house.
Okay, okay.
They have changed the terminology for that as well. So we collect real estate, we collect the personal property, and we do collect manufactured housing tax. They are their own separate category.
Okay.
And so the board knows, I went into the assessor's office to clarify, because I'm the owner of a mobile home, manufactured home that's really a trailer, just to make sure there wasn't any conflict with me in this item before us, because I don't remember ever seeing this before. But it's been a while since we've actually had one of these come before the board.
I would say so because
to my knowledge,
obviously they're
some years.
2013, so
yeah, it's been a while, and I'm not even sure I remember prior to that. But I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a conflict with me, and I was cleared on that. So I'm able to sit at the table and vote on this without a conflict.
Okay, I just want, Kelly, did
No,
you? It's just funny, I looked down at the list of all these businesses, and if you told me they were still open today, I'd believe you, because I remember them all well, and it's just surprising have they really been gone that long? Are the people who were operating them, are they still around? It doesn't seem, the impression I get is it doesn't seem as if some of these are carryovers, so I don't understand if they actually still owed taxes, or was it just a timing and notification issue? I'm still not sure I understand how that works. But.
So what happens if I read in the newspaper that someone's going out of business, a restaurant, a business, I do reach out, I do remind them that they are obligated for that year's tax, which will not be billed until the following January. And can I have a valid mailing address for that time?
You don't always
You
get
may never hear back from them.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I do proactively.
Sure.
But I don't walk the streets and see going out of business signs. So the best I can do is reach out when it is, usually in the newspaper, and try and obtain a valid address prior to.
Right. Kelly?
Does this tax that's been unremitted then follow the person?
It follows, in the case of businesses, I went and I clarified this with the assessor, because it's really their definition more so than mine. And for businesses, the tax follows the owner, not the space, not the property, because you could have a restaurant operating that goes out of business and the next tenant is an art gallery.
Sure.
The equipment, the furnishings, the fixtures are all gone.
I guess
And
I'm
that's really what
wondering-
the personal property tax is taxing.
Because I believe one of these businesses has been before, the individual has been before us recently for something separate. So I don't know how interested.
You can track them
or
down.
yeah, I don't know what that looks like. Or
You also have very little leverage left to say, pay this tax or else. I mean, real estate taxes, you have the tax lien sale.
Right.
It's very simple. There is a leverage there. Manufactured homes, we have the right to go in and actually, distrain them, evict them, sell them the manufactured house. With personal property, the goods oftentimes are gone.
Okay. And I just want to note, I'm having issues with my online access, so I'm going to look over your shoulder, Steve. But for the public who might be listening, the total amount we're talking about is $5,954. Not a number with lots of zeros after it.
And it dates back to 2013, so essentially it's for the last 6 years.
Right. So a relatively small amount of money going back 6 years. It's a part of our public record. People will probably be interested to know, if it's okay. I'm just going to read the names of the businesses that have gone out. El Rincon is one. Ross Andrews Gold Jewelry. Plum Media. Square Grouper was a restaurant, I believe. Salon MVO. Aspen Dollar Bar and Whiskey Rush. These are all very familiar names. I don't get out much, I guess, because I would have assumed they were all still there. But
You don't get out at all.
Get
Because
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I would say it's remarkable. It's just small.
Yeah.
Given the number of the business that turn over year after year after year, it's pretty incredible that we're able to minimize the losses. That certainly doesn't just go to the county, because these monies get distributed throughout everyone who's on the tax roll. So.
And I would say the treasurer's staff do an incredible job on following up, numerous phone calls, being very investigative on the internet, and tracking people down. Some people aren't aware that, they have this outstanding bill, but they follow up and do a fantastic job of making sure that we have as few delinquencies as possible.
Great. Well, thank you. Well done. It's informative. Do I need a motion?
You probably do.
Anybody care to make it?
I'll make a motion to approve on first reading and set for public hearing on October 9th, which will then be continued to October 10th. For the cancellation of certain uncollectible taxes levied on personal property, including but not limited to mobile homes in Pickens County.
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sid, thank you for coming, Ann. Thank you for
Thanks for
coming.
your first presentation
done.
for us. Well done.
All right. Okay, up next, item number 5, we have ordinances authorizing execution of 4 license and use agreements for on-airport rental car operators at Aspen Pitkin County Airport. And Chris is here.
How you doing today?
Thanks for coming. Since you're coming from the airport, I was just wondering, how did the fire drill go was that last weekend?
Last week.
Last week, yeah.
It
It was really good. Everybody worked together as a team. All the different mutual aids came together pretty well, from what I could see. I'm the finance guy, so I just see a bunch of fire and just thinking, no, that's pretty cool.
So. You had your helmet and boots though.
The guys
are
out there. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I have my own helmet and boots.
Yeah, I just note that we did have while Chris is pulling that up, we did have a third party out there with our firefighters from the Phoenix area, so we'll be getting an evaluation of each team's performance.
Observer?
Too. Yep.
Great.
All right.
Where do they get the jet? Is it a body that, a fuselage that they use for fire training?
I think it's manufactured specifically for that purpose. So it's actually a trailer. When you go out
That's what
there,
I
you can see
thought.
the hitch coming out of the
I thought, who
front.
volunteered their jet for that fire drill?
Yeah.
It's very generous.
And it's probably a little bit thicker fuselage than most jets, but it's hooked up to a pretty large propane tank. They have pads out there that simulate fuel spills, and the flames can shoot, I think it was 30 or 40 feet out the back to simulate
Fire in a jet.
to simulate what actually could be happening on the ground and also in the body of the aircraft while they're extracting folks. So it's pretty
You
thorough.
saw the snowmass truck out there the day after too. They were probably just wondering.
Yeah, I went out there on that day too and saw them. They actually have panels that they can remove because there's a special tool that's like a spike that they'll penetrate
it?
through and spread water. So they just remove it and replace it. So
A schnozzle, it's called.
I did not know that.
Take your word for that.
All right, my name is Chris Padilla. I'm the airport director. I'm bringing forth today some car rental leases that we've gone onto RFP for and are looking for approval from the board for. So in the past, the previous contract, we had five on-airport rental car companies: Hertz, Avis, Budget, National Alamo, and Go Rental. And then we had one off-site company. And that just means that they did not use our long-term storage or our car wash and gas station facilities, but they did pay us a percentage of their revenue. So these car rental agreements expired back in November 30th, 2018. It was a bad time to start doing an RFP, and due to the peak season, we started operating under the holdover clause of those contracts. So we launched an RFP in April, and we finally kind of wrapped it up recently, and we're expecting a November 1st start date if the board passes this. And I got kind of a question on the October 9th question, whether we can still go ahead and move forward. In 2018, the actuals that we received in car rental facilities or car rental revenues was just a little over $2 million. In 2019, I budgeted 1.9 based off of the prior year's lower car rental because of the fires. So I kind of went conservative on that side. So after the RFP, we got 4 new on-car rental car companies: Enterprise, Hertz, Avis, and Sixth. And Go Rentals decided to go ahead and move off airport as a off-airport car rental company. And so they operate under a use agreement. Just contract overview. So the term is from the November 1st, 19 to October 31st, 2023. They come with 5 one-year extension periods after that. The fees and charges that they're going to have is our current rate is $75.81 square foot per year. Did you have a
Chris,
question?
hold on just a sec. Kelly,
Sure, yeah, I have a question. Were there companies that submitted RFP that you did not accept?
Actually, no.
Okay.
We had 4 booths and 4.
So anyone who's an Avis member and is upset that Avis is no longer part of that, it was Avis's choice not to submit for the
Correct.
RFP.
So actually, Avis and
Oh,
Budget,
sorry.
Avis Budget are the same
They
company.
merged
Got it.
Avis and Budget.
And so it's going to be signed with Avis, and then they have the child companies underneath those. So they're still Avis and Budget, still represented at the airport. It's just the parent company for each of these. So the same thing with Enterprise. National Alamo will still be represented there at
I
the
see.
airport.
Okay. Okay.
So they're
Thank
all
you.
still there. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's kind of an interesting concept. It was a really new RFP for us. We charge $75.81 dollars per square foot per year for the booth rental in the queuing area, which I'll show here in a sec. We charge $200 per space per month for this, the ready return lot. That's the parking right in front of the terminal. We have staging and storage area, which we rent out for $4.50 per square foot per year. And we also collect CFCs, which are customer facility charges of $5.50 per rental car day.
Question from George.
So Chris, are these fees, have they been in place for several years?
The CFCs have been in place for quite a few years. The storage and staging area, we increased from $3.50 per square foot to $4.50 based on talking to the assessors and looking at current rates, market rates for, I guess, parking lots.
So, but the customer service in the office areas have remained the same?
Yes, we plan on coming back to the board because the office area space is actually tied to our rates and fees charges, which we will be coming back to the board with a new rates and fees schedule, because we have not changed those rates and fees since 2017, and they need to be adjusted.
But the contract allows these fees to go through 2023?
No, okay, so specifically on the contract, the terminal square foot per year is actually tied to our rates and fees, so it'll adjust as they're re-looked at.
Oh, okay.
The only thing that's really specific to it is are the ready return spaces for $200 and the storage area for $450.
All right, thank you.
So those are locked for 5 years, and they're this, is that what I got from that?
Correct.
Those two items. The others are, it's kind of a market rate per square foot. But currently it's at $75.81. Is that how I should interpret that?
No, that's actually, so the terminal square footage is actually based off of a recuperation of costs. So personnel percentage costs for people spending time at the terminal, the admin office at the terminal, actually admin's on landing rates, any kind of upgrades to the terminal, maintenance, repairing the roof, anything that has to do with just strictly the commercial side goes into a cost per square foot space. And then we try to add a little extra in there because we can actually make a little bit of a profit on that, so that we can create a reserve.
Got it, okay. All right, so the 5-year term was the only thing that hung me up there. I'm wondering what's modifiable or amendable in these contracts going forward. Any questions from anybody else? What else have you got for us?
All right, so the preliminary budget right now that we've kind of calculated out is $2.1 million for the 4 car rental companies.
That's our expected gross from this.
Correct. Yes, sir. So the difference that you'll see here is that we included a queuing space in front of the booths now from last time this came to the board, which was a long time ago. So that way they can kind of queue, kind of just the exact same concept as the airlines. So we included that.
Are you talking about just the little colored spaces in front of the desks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Because they were keeping
That's all they get.
baby seats in that area, anyways, and
they need that space.
Yeah, the customers were queuing up there and that sort of thing. So here's the proposed parking packages. You can see that the package 4 is the new entrant, which is going to be 6th to the market. That's the upper left-hand side in orange. And here's the current. This is before we do any kind of berm removal. This is just for the RFP package. But this is the RFP package that was presented to them, and that's in this lease. And depending on the timetable, that's why we haven't brought forward the new proposed spaces, breakouts. So staff recommendation is approval on the lease and ordinance and set a second reading and public hearing on October 9th.
Patty?
Okay. Lots of information. Thank you very much. Thanks for the clarification on the Avis budget. And National did not reapply, that's correct?
No, National is under
off-site?
Enterprise.
They're part of Enterprise.
Oh, they're Enterprise. They merged with Enterprise. That's right. I knew there was a second merger. So within the packet, there is a mention of, under terms, under page 4, which is page 62 of our packet.
Yeah.
Under terms, just noted this. The term of this agreement shall commence as of November 1st, 2019, and shall expire on October 31st, 2023, or the final day of operations at the current terminal.
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain that to me? I'm looking at Mr. Peacock over there. Is that having to do with our
That is,
proposal too?
yeah, if the, we're in a public process right now around potential improvements at the airport. Should, as a pursuant to that public process, should this board direct a project that moves forward for a new terminal or such, then this is the clause that would apply to that.
And it also, I think, then applies to page 99 under section, or page 41 of the agreement, section 11, the county's right to improve the airport. Because that, in my copy, is a little bit different font. So is that a new added as far as their new plans to potential for remodel, improvement, et cetera? So that was just further to clarify.
Yeah.
If that comes up in the terms under the time frame of this contract.
And in any scenario right now, if for some reason, you know, we were to stay in our current space, it will likely require realignment of some type, or could, and or development of new terminal space. That language would apply.
Just wanted to make sure that that was clarified within these contracts, because we know that something may happen within the time frame or something may not.
Right.
Exactly. We've been trying to get that verbiage in all of our contracts so that.
That's a standard clause, Patty, regardless
Of whether or not we're planning anything. I just
you never know what kind of changes might happen during the course of
just wanted to point those out as far as what we're ongoing right now. And then I have one other on page 67 of our packet, page 9 of this agreement, under 4.4.2 under automobiles. I know we've talked about this many times in the past, and I know I might be beating Greg to this discussion. Is there any way we can incentivize electric or hybrid vehicles?
So we've had this conversation with the car rental companies too. It's really the market driven. The vacationers coming in, they've offered the vehicles, the electric vehicles, and I think they even, I remember one of them even incentivizing it. They just weren't renting out. Nobody, the people coming in to rent the cars to visit, they were wanting the, you know, the 4-wheel drives, kind of the bigger, or even, you know, something like a Jeep. Jeeps are pretty popular, but they didn't. They did offer them, and I think one of them actually incentivized electric vehicles.
Yeah, and John?
Yeah, the only, you know, other thing I'd add regarding the purely electric vehicles right now is currently our infrastructure would be challenged to support a large fleet of those.
For charging stations.
For charging stations and such. Now that is an opportunity as we look towards future airport improvements, and I know that's something that the committees are speaking to.
Well, and in light of what Ziska Child said earlier, we need to keep the climate change and climate action plan in mind, as Greg usually does. I beat him to it today. Just to encourage and incentivize, and if we need to, if the company, if that trend flips, then I think we need to be prepared to take it on, and I think it never hurts to continue to ask them.
Oh, it came up during the RFP, but you know, just kind of off the back of that, I'm thinking now, I've noticed that there are more hybrids out there, so.
Okay.
Kelly?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on this topic because, you know, I think we can do a couple of things that would be more than just I don't know, light carrot approach, I guess. You know, at the state level, we supported legislation where we have put into place quotas about how many of different types of cars should be sold. And I just wonder if there's a similar opportunity here to include in our contracting that the companies provide a certain percentage of their cars as electric in order to make this incentive kind of more impactful. And then with regards to the infrastructure piece, you know, the CFC charges, from what I read in the contract, are set up to provide a fund for capital improvements. And so, you know, I think there's an opportunity there to use that fund or increase that fund or fee per transaction for a temporary, perhaps mobile infrastructure solution to not having enough power or charging stations. I just don't think we will be honoring our climate change commitments to kick this down to a potential future airport project that may not come to fruition for another, you know, 8 to 10 or more years. So I want to press on this a little bit and see what we can include now.
Steve? Going along that same line of thinking, I think we should be providing in the rental car area charging stations for their use. And in the public parking areas, we should be planning on adding charging stations for the general public's use. And if that could be worked in, if the configuration of the parking lots could be figured out in relation to a new terminal, so we wouldn't have to redo things at some point in time, that would be nice. But I would agree with Kelly that we should start looking at putting the infrastructure in, try to locate it so it's in a permanent place that doesn't have to be moved later if possible.
Or as a mobile solution.
Or mobile, yeah.
Mobile meaning temporary, perhaps.
Right, yeah.
And I'm looking at, I don't disagree with that, I just know that it'd be great if we could figure out a way. I don't know what we can bring in today with these contracts before us.
Well,
I don't
this is
know,
our first
but-
reading.
I think with these contracts they are what they are, but going forward to incentivize, maybe
Doesn't mean we
eventually
could-
require that there be a certain number of electric
Yeah, but I don't know what
rental
the
cars offered.
expenses to put, because I don't think we have any infrastructure at all.
Yeah, right now that's one of the items that for the terminal interim project was to try to see if we get more power out there because we are at capacity, and they've been working. When I say our consultants and have been working with, I think is it Black Hills that provides us?
No,
Holy
it's
Cross.
Holy Cross.
Thanks. Holy Cross.
Unless we're running them on natural gas now, but.
So there has been talks about
Yeah.
that.
I would really encourage the board, if this is the direction, we probably need to continue this item because I'm not comfortable giving you answers that we could actually do.
It's possible.
To this right now. It is possible regarding fleet mix and hybrids. I think it's going to be really challenging on the electric side until we have a more permanent plan in place. As far as I know, we've been looking at it, but as the board knows, we're already running multiple processes and projects out there. I'm a little concerned if we add another layer, we've got to drop one of these at this point. And so I think if the board is going in this direction, we should probably continue this.
We also have a deadline though, the November 1st, these contracts kick in, so it kind of gives us it gives us a window, but not a large window.
Yeah.
George?
Yeah, I see these as two really separate issues and items. I know they tie together at some point, but in front of us is just accepting the lease. The other issue is how do we provide opportunities to encourage fleets, the future fleets, because we could always come back. This is an annual review contract, even though it goes for 5 years.
The first 5 years is the initial, and then it goes into a 1 year.
It's a 1 year term.
It's a 1 year term.
1 year.
With renewable periods.
Right.
To
For
a
5.
total of a maximum of 5.
Yeah, so,
Thank
thank you. So we always will have the opportunity to follow up on these ideas once we get sort of a bigger picture in terms of access, availability, cost to install some of the infrastructure that's needed. But I don't see that should be hanging up the
Sure.
ability for us to view the
And-
leases right now.
Within the structure, I think we could even come back with stronger incentives, like around fleet mix or that sort of thing, moving towards hybrids, maybe looking at some of those ready return rates and that sort of thing. You take a revenue hit, which will hurt our capital investment capacity, but you can always provide an incentive even within this structure to further kind of encourage and move those fleets in
At least
the
if we had
direction that we
mention
want.
somewhere, that would be a good way to keep that door open, I think. There's no mention with the mix, there's to incentivize the use for the traveling public of high for a while. But yeah, I think if we could bring something back, maybe at second reading that has some kind of, in part of the documents, to incentive and encourage to work with the county on the.
So what I'm taking primarily from this is that these are 1 year leases. We could come back a year from now and say, well, we think you need to have 5% of your fleet be electric or hybrid or whatever. We could change the terms of the lease for the renewal next year.
Can't change it unilaterally, but the way the agreement is.
It's your mic.
we can't do it unilaterally, but the way the agreement is structured is that the first year term would be consistent with the leases that are spelled out and are within your packet. At the end of that term, or actually before then, before the first renewal period, you can discuss any items with the tenants, with the users of the space, and tell them this is how we're moving to utilize the space, and otherwise we won't want to renew. But at this point, we have a decent relationship with the four companies, which are only really four players in the rental car business, the way the companies have consumed each other, but maintained independent brands to continue the dialogue. It's just a question of how much do you want to see now? What can we reasonably provide, consistent with the ability of the rental car companies to comply, and how much then can we anticipate progressing over time?
Right, those are all great questions, and that's, if we know the lease is something we can open up after a year, which I'm still not clear on. It's a 5-year term, but you say it's a 1-year lease. It's a 5-year
maximum amount of time on these leases. So it's a 1-year term with renewal periods following the initial term, and the renewal period is based upon mutual agreement. We are agreeing to renew for another year, renew for another year, renew for another year, maximum of 5 years. So in a year, we could come back and say, we've got a structured, phased-in thing, whatever that might be, bringing in electrics, ramping up over several years, for instance. We could add incentives, like space discounts for space rental, or something to incentivize them or take away some of the pain they feel because if they don't think they can rent them. The thing that I'm seeing is that with the new rules in Colorado, the number of electric vehicles and four-wheel drive electric vehicles available is going up dramatically. I think we have 30 or plus new models will be on the market in Colorado. Some of them might be very appropriate for rental cars. But I don't know that, and I don't want to presume, but I do want to make it possible. So when we see an opportunity to incentivize them, or perhaps even mandate a phasing of to electric vehicles, we could do that and not have to wait 5 years. That was my biggest question. Steve?
When you look at the business model of the rental car companies, they are national companies, and people would be renting cars here and delivering it back somewhere else at times. And so if the company is not set up for receiving electric vehicles and charging them in Denver or Salt Lake City or some other location where they have an office, it wouldn't work for them to have part of the fleet electric until they're ready to have the service all across the whole country for their company, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, nationwide.
So it's a little more complicated than just us wanting electric vehicles at our airport.
They do have hybrid options all across the country.
Yeah.
I just wrote a note to change my car reservation to a hybrid.
There you go. Thank you, Patty.
I can't
See if you can
speak
get
it
an
without
electric.
doing it. Yeah, no, I've got babies in the car. Electric would be dangerous. So if we could bring back just some kind of maybe language in this agreement that just incentive, it says just a dimension of wanting to look at in the future the use of hybrids and or electric vehicles.
So an incentive program translates into not a requirement on the leasee of providing so many or percentage or exclusive amount of electric vehicles or number of electric vehicles, but reduced fees and charges for the incorporation of fully electric vehicles into their fleet. Is that?
I'm not asking for that now. I'm just saying I would like some language in this document, and then it's going to take us some time to gel what we would like to see maybe next year as far as a percentage or whatever. I'm just saying I want to open the door in this document before us to looking in the future use of hybrids and or electric vehicles. There's no mention in the documents of that, and I would like to have something in there that says that.
Thank you. I think that sounds good. I just wanted to add that there are a lot of local rentals. While we do have that Denver, Salt Lake, Grand Junction issue, people taking a car one way, a lot of people rent a vehicle here and they stay here. And there are a lot of vehicles that would be appropriate for year-round use. Electric, the range is fine in a small place like this, that we could actually think about mandating a percentage, local rentals only perhaps, to make it easier, incentivize or give them some sort of credit. I'd love that to be considered. And I do know that there's an issue with, we don't have room for chargers. Well, I think that's a problem we're going to need to address. I don't want to wait a lot longer. I know we have an overwhelmed situation with the airport and staff on this already. But I also know there are probably mobile transformer possibilities, mobile charging units, something we could do that could start the process and inform us as we develop the next generation of the airport,
Yeah,
whatever
and
that is.
I don't disagree with that. I think the problem we're trying to overcome right now at the airport is our electric use at the airport is maxed in general. So regardless of how we were to bring in chargers.
Well, it might be a transformer, and that's something we need to
Yeah,
learn
it's
about.
a bigger picture than just bringing in something we can plug in because we're already on a system that's maxed.
That's what we're told.
Yeah.
We
Well,
can't do it presently.
John will changing the wording on this document, push it back because we has to run it through the car rental company's lawyers too.
Well, I guess I'm going to wait for a motion to see
Okay.
what the board wants to do with the contracts.
Anybody have a
We have to
motion?
approve each contract individually,
Yes,
so we should have them consistent.
yes, most assuredly.
This is complicated enough. I'm just wondering if the motion would be to continue this.
We have a second reading coming up on the 9th, continue to the 10th, so can changes be made in that period of time for second read?
The second reading isn't necessarily on the 9th and or 10th. The public hearing is on the 9th and or 10th.
We could
So
continue
if
it
you
from
continue the first reading, then the first reading would be on one of those 2 days, well, the 10th, at the same time as the public hearing. And then we would have to schedule a second reading, which would not be a notice public hearing, and that would be, sometime in the future from that.
But hopefully before November 1st, when the date, we'd like to kick these contracts in.
Yeah, I don't really see the need to continue. I mean, there's some, I've heard some fairly nebulous wording, and I'm not sure that it has any teeth to it, at least initially, until we're able to provide some opportunities to allow, incentivize, encourage
Right.
vehicles. So,
BOCC's just having flexibility within the contracts in a year or so to do that.
right.
So we could either way. I just wanted to add some language, but if the board's comfortable in just saying next year, we'll have documentation before us that would allow us to do something more concrete. I just wanted to get the bug in somebody's ear that we're looking at that mix in their vehical mix.
Thank you.
But if that language is, I don't know, like we can
Yeah,
take
I-
nebulous into concrete if you'd like.
Well,
I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Chris, did you have information from the companies that tried offering these
No,
type of cars, at what kind of incentive might be?
no hard numbers. It was a conversation of, hey, the board and the county is moving to be a greener force, and is there a market here that you can offer the electric vehicles, and that's how that matter came up.
I'm not willing to take their word for it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's why I started to mention that before. I wasn't quite sure how the board will coalesce around a motion and what a vote might look like, but an incentive program is essentially a voluntary one.
Right.
So the sacrifice, so to speak, is on the county's part. We are willing to forego some amount of fees and charges if your fleet mix or your rental numbers reflect the use of electric vehicles or hybrids, however you want to do it, to some degree. So it's a relinquishment of fees and charges that would be collected by us, but it would not mandate a change in the business model and or the way the business is conducted at the airport. I mean, they could elect to simply pay the higher fees and charges and keep their fleet the way it is.
Right.
If we amp it up a little bit to say we want some percentage of the fleet to be changed, that is a renegotiated point on the lease contracts. So
Yeah, I'm comfortable in having that conversation occur over this next year. I think we need to see what the impacts would be financially to the county or to the airport fund, where we could land on incentives, what we could offer, what they might like to see, and bring that back for a bit broader discussion for next year. Because I think that's some information we need to gather.
I agree.
And I think these contracts need to move forward because we've been kind of operating without a firm contract for a while. And I'd like to see us, at least for this next year, have a firm contract before us. So if the board does or doesn't want to add some language into as to the looking at a program in the future to increase the fleet mix and to include hybrids and or electrics, then I'm fine with that as long as the word's out.
Other comments on that? Steve?
One other consideration, I would agree with you, I think we need to move forward. This is a lot bigger issue than just changing some wording in here. If we had a whole bunch, a certain percentage more of electric vehicles in the rental fleet, people need a place to charge them. Where are they gonna charge them? We need to have a lot more charging stations at hotels and lodges and in public parking lots, and so all that has to be calculated into the mix of how many electric vehicles at what pace do we want to convert all the cars in the valley to electric vehicles. We can't do it all at once because there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be in place first.
I agree.
Yeah. So I would like to make a motion, and I presume we have to do each of these separately. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners repealing ordinance 035, 2014 and authorizing execution of a license and use agreement with Avis Budget Car Rental LLC for on-airport rental car operations at the Aspen-Pickett County Airport.
Second.
We have a second.
I have a good
further
comment. So
discussion,
we are
Tom?
not going to talk about including any language to just put the bug in their ear. We're just going to leave it as is.
I want to leave it as it is and work. There's a lot of things, a lot of wording and things to.
Well, I understand that. I was not saying that we have a final plan, just to put but just to mention it. But just so staff is aware, we would like that to occur at some level over this next year, because I think, as Iska said, we got to put our money where our mouth is, and we need to start looking at that.
And I just want to ask Chris, do you, before we don't do anything, I guess, is there not an incentive that we could include right now without the labor of needing to do research and all of that? Because I guess what I see is including the incentive language now in this contract says we're going to set it up to see how well you respond to this, with sort of the warning that a quota might be the attached request in the future. Otherwise we're not even setting up the opportunity until next year.
Well, judging from what Ely said too, it's a voluntary program that we could implement, after talking and looking at it. Maybe there's different incentives, like the infrastructure issue. I believe right now people that go and plug into a charging station pay, so maybe the hotels offer free charging and you don't have to pay for
I guess
gas.
I'm just wondering, is there an incentive that we have control over in the context of this contract to say, if you have 10% of your fleet, this is the incentive that we can include in this contract right now? Is there anything that you would feel comfortable including, or is this something like we need more research, you can't answer that question?
I would feel more comfortable with numbers. Will that incentive be enough, or will that fleet mix be enough for the car rentals to still operate and have the revenues? And then we still have to make sure that our fund balance is self-sustaining, just to kind of see where it would land. We could maybe, who knows, maybe if they offered it at $5 discount and we take away some fees for the parking spaces, but would that be enough for the market to want to demand that?
But I think we can take direction, because even without language in the contract right now, that's an incentive that we could provide outside of this. It would be a reduction or a rebate, or however we structure it. But I think we need to have probably some more discussions with the car rental companies to understand what would move the needle potentially on their end for that fleet mix, and to also get people to utilize those vehicles, which is the ultimate goal, and how it then fits with any future opportunities. Because the more you take from this, you're investing in the car rental side, but maybe not in the mass transit side or other side in the future.
George?
Yeah, and still the underlying problem issue is infrastructure. So we can incentivize a car company to have 10% of their fleet electric, but if they have no place to charge them, what are we really doing?
Well, I know that, and I would just, again, push against that a little bit in the sense that we've supported statewide legislation that also has to figure out all of those questions too. So, it's a little bit of like let's put, our goals out there, and I'm okay with not saying we can't mandate it because we don't have all the conditions in place to make that fair. That's why an incentive approach I think is appropriate, but I don't want us to sort of get in the way of those things as well, because we could say, well, fine, then have them be hybrid, or have a certain percentage fit what we know is available now.
And we can take that into account, because we may not have immediately the opportunity for charging infrastructure, but certainly hybrid vehicle would have a much greater benefit, and we could place a value to that versus a Jeep vehicle or Suburban or what have you.
So I would suggest that we pass the resolutions the ordinances as written, with direction to staff to think about this, bring it back with what it would mean to the county as far as the fiscal responsibility for the airport and any of those other issues, and that could come back to us within this next year.
Well, the board's going to see it in a couple of weeks again anyway.
Well, if they could do it in a couple of weeks, but I don't know if there's some things that can happen overnight and some things that might take a little longer, so I'm
So you're back to as written.
Yeah.
George, I think, is as written.
Yeah, that's
You're at as written. I wanted to say I would have been willing, I think, to try to add some language. I liked where you were going with that. I am thinking about incentives, and the thing we want to do when we look at this is we want to incentivize the car rental agencies, but we also want to incentivize the renters. It won't be hard to convince renters that they can rent an electric and get around and safely, four-wheel drive and all that. If we can incentivize renters with free charging, pay nothing for your fuel while you're here. That's something we could possibly do when the infrastructure is ready.
They can all go to Public Works and line up.
Well, we could. It's a solvable problem, and it helps us move the direction we want, which is to incentivize people to rent an electric vehicle for a number of reasons. And we can also work on incentivizing the rental agencies, whether it's through less space rent for an electric vehicle. It also helps us incentivize us to look at solutions for this transformer at the airport, which I understand is undersized. Are there mobile transformer solutions? What happens when a transformer gets knocked out in a hurricane? What do they bring in on a truck? Is that a possibility? Is that even something that might help us ramp up and put in some temporary electric chargers? I think this is a solvable technical problem, and I want to make sure we don't preclude ourselves from solving it for another 5 years. If we can start next year, baby step to this year, another baby step next year, and we ramp it up. We warn the car companies, and I'm pretty sure we're not the only airport in the country that's talking this way. So I know they're thinking about it too. So let's see if we can help move it along, and perhaps we can nudge, the rest of the state, if not the rest of the country. That's what we're trying to do here. So, given that, I have a motion.
And a second. You have a second.
And we have a second. No more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's
Board
one
has
down.
direction in addition to what we just voted on. Do we understand what we're going to be looking at and where
Correct.
we're going?
Direction to staff to look at incentive programs, research these programs, and look at the financial impact. Do some info
For
gathering.
rental agencies as well as for the renters.
Correct.
Right?
For both sides. I'm guessing that we'll find probably other faces of where incentives might live, just besides us two in the research.
Yeah.
And then, kind of give the car rental companies a heads up that we support the hybrid
We've been talking about that for years, so this is really nothing new.
Yeah. Well, with electric, but
And then infrastructure.
So I will now like to make a motion to approve the second ordinance, which is the same wording, but it is for the agreement with Enterprise Leasing Company of Denver, doing business as Alamo Rent-A-Car, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and National Rent-A-Car.
Wow, I didn't know that. Three.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The third one, I'll make a motion to approve the third ordinance for the lease agreement with Hertz Corporation, for Hertz Corporation.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll make a motion to approve the fourth ordinance, which has to do with the use agreement with Sixt Rent-A-Car.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you all for that conversation. I appreciate where everyone's
And
going.
So just to clarify, so we've set this for second reading and public hearing on October 9th. We're not actually entertaining business that day. We're just meeting to continue it to the 10th.
okay. So
So
then,
that will, your return to us will be on October 10th.
okay. And then after that, I can go ahead and send the contracts on to.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I don't. I just
We're
want to make sure
aiming
that
for
we.
November 1st.
Okay, great. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you, Chris.
We're sorry to dump
Sorry I
extra
caught
work
you off
on you,
guard.
but this is important.
I bet you're not surprised about that.
It's only an existential crisis, okay?
Well, it's my job, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whew, okay. We got through that one. Up next, individual consideration items, public hearing, second readings. We have a resolution approving third quarter budget supplemental requests. And Connie's here. First of all, does anybody else need a break?
I'm good.
Okay, I'll probably need one after Connie, just to warn you all. Okay.
Good afternoon, Connie Baker, Picken County Budget Director, and we're here with the second reading of this resolution. The supplemental requests in the resolution were discussed at length at the board's work session on September 10th, and staff was here to answer questions. The board had discussions on them, so today I'm just going to briefly mention what the different requests are and not go into detail on them. This budget resolution increases the county's 2019 budgeted expenditures by $5,348,200. There are two requests in the general fund for relatively small amounts. And they're both from facilities. The first is for snow removal that was done this winter at the Health and Human Services building, and that's for $28,400. The second is increasing the budget for electricity for this building and the River Park Center in Basalt. The original budgeted amounts were estimates and were not high enough. The third request is the fleet shop flooring repairs and resurfacing. This is a project that was originally budgeted in 2018. It got delayed and the scope of the project changed and bids came in higher, so it's a request to increase that budget. Then at the Solid Waste Center, stormwater cover replacement. This is $380,000 to replace a faulty stormwater cover, and staff at the Solid Waste Center hopes to be able to recover the cost from the company that put in the faulty one. There are two supplemental requests from Open Space and Trails. One is a contribution to Aspen Valley Land Trust, and it is to help them with a land conservation plan, and that's for $25,000. Picken County Open Space was also asked to contribute a third of the cost to pay for the retirement of the Upper Crystal River grazing allotment. And So that is $32,000 is a third of that cost. Then there were two requests from the airport. The first is the parking project, which reconfigures the existing employee, economy, and rental car parking areas in order to increase the parking capacity. And that request is for $2,355,000. And then the last request is for interim terminal project at the airport, and this is in order to restore the capacity of the airport back up to what it was prior to a fire code reevaluation, and the cost is $2,403,000. Any questions?
Questions? We've seen this a couple of times. Any other clarifications or questions?
Public hearing.
It's a public hearing, thank you. It is a public hearing. We're going to open this for a public hearing. Is anybody from the public here who would like to speak? I don't see anyone. It's open. And we're going to bring it back. Any other comment? Steve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
For all the time we've spent talking over this, I just wanted to make sure there was a long pause in case somebody wanted to add anything. But I think we've covered this thoroughly and we understand it all and approve it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to take a break?
I would like to take if I can take a 10-minute break, if that's okay. Grassroots, 10-minute break.
Get Dale a pillow.
Get Dale a pillow. Oh, has he been driving a lot? Thanks, Steve. He looks kind of sleepy. Okay. We're back, folks. Make sure your mics are on there. This is the come back from break on the Wednesday, September 25th Board of County Commissioners meeting. We're in public hearings, second readings, and up next we have the ordinance authorizing CDOT, the Colorado Department of Transportation, North Star Boundary Agreement. Welcome.
Thanks, Greg. I guess I'll take this one. I'm Dale Will, the Acquisition Manager for Open Space, and I'm joined by Lindsay Utter, the Recreation
Planning and Outreach Manager.
Planning and Outreach Manager.
We knew that.
And as we explained on first reading, this situation has arisen as a result of the error in the county's deeds on both the North Star Preserve, which was transferred to us in 1979, as well as the James H. Smith property that's next door that we acquired in 2004. And in both cases, the surveyors of those properties missed the fact that the Highway 82 was built within the defined legal descriptions of those parcels way back in the 1950s. And so the rights to the strip of land under the highway and the adjoining shoulders and culverts and so on went off to the state under prescriptive rights long time ago. And hence, when we acquired both the North Star Preserve and the James H. Smith open space, we did not actually acquire the state highway right-of-way. And the boundary agreement that we are proposing with CDOT simply recognizes that fact. So I take the time to explain that in that way to be clear that we're not conveying away anything. We're recognizing that we didn't actually acquire quite as much land as we thought we did at the time. And the ordinance will authorize the board chair to execute a boundary recognition agreement with CDOT once that agreement has been approved and formed by the county attorney's office. From a practical standpoint, though, this does help the open space program, and maybe I'll let Lindsay describe how this is going to help in the administration of North Star.
So in our 2015 management plan, we had a couple action items that talked about cleaning up and organizing and managing the areas along the highway that are mainly around the access corridors. So, of course, you guys are all well aware. The beach area and the wildlife viewing platform, and then, of course, the takeout in particular, see a lot of use. And so in the process of beginning that, we realized that there were these boundary issues with CDOT. So we've been working on ironing those out. And then the goal is in the future that once the agreement is in place, we can work with CDOT and leasing back management within the right-of-way there, which is an agreement they have in other locations in Colorado where recreation interfaces on the highway. So then we can start moving forward on some of those management issues that to date we've been held up in this limbo area on. So it'll give us more ability to help improve the user patterns out there.
Great. Seems necessary. By the way, I just want to say we did, Kelly had to leave early today, so it's down to the four of us.
Yeah,
Patty?
just real quick, I appreciate you doing this, and as you know, we just had the meeting with the East of Aspen Caucus about their concerns, and it's my understanding that we're going to be working with CETA on some additional signage, which is going to be great, which is what they've asked for. So I think this is great. We need to clean it up, and that's part of revision and revisiting a master plan. So that's where we are. So I appreciate the efforts.
Comments, questions?
Sorry,
No,
I neglected to mention one thing, just as a little bit of a preview, as a footnote to this, the Aston Valley Land Trust holds a conservation easement on North Star, and concurrent with this agreement with CDOT, we will need to amend the legal description in that conservation easement. So you will see us come back potentially with that to get, is that CE amendment going to need to come here or simply be processed by the board chair when we, in the AVLT conservation easement amendment is going to have this same boundary once this agreement's done. They've approved it. They're just waiting for us to execute that as well. So, it just
change the boundary of the easement?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the board would have to do it.
So
back to us.
there'll be a little bit more you'll hear about on this thing before we're all completely done.
Just had a question regarding I understand that the state has had a prescriptive easement on the highway since whenever. I just keep thinking about those new signs that appeared. And it must be on the state right of way. I was kind of hoping it would be on our property or open space or AVLT.
They're actually in the city.
Are they all in the city?
I believe so.
There were some new signs that just magically appeared on the highway, which I find offensive. I was thinking,
thought
maybe they put them on your property and you can go.
No, I thought we directed John to follow up with CDOT and Brian on those.
Did we? Okay.
Well, we'll bring it up again, but we did.
They're just wooden 4x4 posts, not really very permanent structures, but.
I think I took pictures.
It's news to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're the one.
I haven't heard.
You'll see them when you drive by. You'll go, "Oh, where did they come from?"
You'll never miss them again.
What's on them?
It says "Keep Colorado Beautiful" or something.
It's the beautiful Colorado. It's like the Adopt a Highway signs, but now they're like this big.
Gotcha.
And there's an ad for a pot shop. It's a billboard for a pot shop, which may or a grow facility.
And they
or something.
maintain that their Adopt a Highway sign.
It's something like that, but they just kind of
It's a
appeared
new
out of
program.
nowhere.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're still in. I'm still in shock.
Call Edward Abbey.
Yeah, or Bugsy Barnard. That's exactly what I wasn't going to say publicly. Okay, so where are we with this? The public hearing, nobody has a comment on this before us, so we're going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the board.
I thought I took pictures of your signs, Greg.
Ready
just
for a motion? I've got a picture of one somewhere.
First of all, would you close public comment for the item we just heard before us? Because you did.
Are you talking about the supplemental requests?
Yeah.
I'm going to close the public comment on the supplemental requests. Thank you.
And I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing boundary agreement with the Colorado Department of Transportation.
Second?
Second. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye. Thank you for coming
you.
in.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Who's doing Rockfall? Oh, no, Rockfall's later.
Oh, that's coming
Scary.
later. Okay, up next, we have a resolution adopting a memorandum of understanding between Pitkin County and the State of Colorado Governor's Office of Information Technology, OIT, as it's called, Public Safety Communications Network, PSCN, for shared communication sites of Hunter Creek, Loge, Snowmass Village, and Williams in the state of Colorado. And Phyllis is here.
Hi, Phyllis Mattice, Deputy County Manager. This time for second reading, I believe I did get in the packet the MOU that is coming from the state. And so that's their format. It's the same as the MOU that we signed when we turned over the equipment at Crown and Ajax. So the MOU allows the state, or transfers this to the state, ownership of the equipment, only the electronic, I guess the main box that supports the public safety radio system. The county is still responsible to provide the site, which includes the tower, the building, the backup power, which we have generators that are typically propane or natural gas, depending on where they are. And so that's our expense, but the equipment is fairly expensive. Their responsibility is to maintain it, optimize it, upgrade the software, and replace it at the end of its life. The cost is approximately $200,000 for a site. And this term of this MOU is for 25 years. So this was the beginning of when all the public safety agencies began talking about changing from the old VHF frequency radios to 800, which is the state's system. It was our intent to be able to turn this over because this makes the switch over much more affordable not to have these expenses in the future. And 800's used by Lake County, Garfield County, and Eagle County, so it made a lot of sense for Pitkin County to transfer over to that.
Patty?
I appreciate your notation on the agenda item summary that there are no changes from first reading. I appreciate that because you knew I was going to ask that.
I try.
I would be interested to know on a slightly separate, since it's on the topic of the day, it'd be great to know what the power consumption is of all those towers. And if there's someday we can get off of propane or whatever your other form of generator was, just to know about it, just to see what's there, and if other people are doing that. I know it would still have to be required for backup. It's got to be around the clock. Just wondering what the power consumption, it would be good to be on top of that.
They are all electric service. So the state requires electric service to the site, the ability to access the site via vehicle year-round. Now, sometimes vehicles are snowmobiles, but that there's passage. We do have one solar site at Upper Red. It is not a public safety site because we haven't been able to, not that it's not able to produce power, it's that you can't get to it in the winter. It's 5 miles up the back end, past Sunnyside, past wherever it goes. I don't know.
Can't get there.
You can't get there. No, not easily. Same thing with our elephant site. Right now, we attempted through the Forest Service to have solar backup, and they wouldn't approve the amount of solar that we needed on the top of the hill. So I think maybe the time will come eventually, but when we're dealing with the Forest Service sites, they really have control of the land use planning on it. So
thanks for inquiring.
We try, we ask. Natural gas was used as backup instead of propane just because it's easier, and some of the places like where our site is at Hunter Creek, it's in the city of Aspen's water, there's storage building up there, and there was a natural gas line in front of the building. So we went natural gas as a backup, but electric power is the main source.
Right, that's what it's going to take. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Any comment, questions? We need a motion.
We need a public hearing. You were waiting for me to
these
say.
two guys sitting here, and you guys aren't here to talk about.
Yeah, look at it. There it's grinning.
This is a public hearing. We're open for public hearing, but I don't see anybody we're bringing back.
Closing the public hearing.
Oh, closing the public hearing.
And I'll make a motion to approve.
I've got a motion.
I'll second.
Got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, Phyllis. Thanks
Now
for
we don't
that.
have Gary here.
Okay.
You taking this one?
Now, what'd you say? Individual consideration items, emergency ordinance and resolution confirmatory reading. This is the emergency ordinance accepting a rockfall mitigation easement from Castle Ridge Associates. And I think John's taking this one?
Well, I was not planning on.
We're just so far ahead that Gary and Rich and Rye are.
Well, I can tell you that the action was already taken by the board. This is a confirmatory reading that happens as a consequence of the requirements of the Home Rule Charter in order to allow public comment on an action that was taken in an emergency fashion. So nothing obviously has changed from the initial action, which was the action that established the ordinance or the resolution.
So we've already taken action on this, but it is a part of a public hearing. If anybody had a public comment, now would be the time to come and make it. If anybody has a comment on this, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment. And we don't have to take a vote then.
Yes, you do.
We do.
To confirm.
I will make a motion to approve this emergency ordinance accepting an easement from Castle Ridge Associates related to the rockfall mitigation on Castle Creek Road.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving right along to land use items. Coming up next, we have the resolution approving Le Chamonix Major PUD Amendment Site Plan and Scenic Review. And Leslie's not here, but she will be shortly.
She's probably watching.
She thinks that we're so slow. She's just going to saunter down here. We'll be done. Hurry up, Leslie.
So take your time setting up, gentlemen. Welcome.
Take your time.
Ready. We should sit here so Leslie can sit.
Scott has informed me that somewhere in the 700 pages of our packet, he put in like a little thing, and if we find it, we get a prize or something. Just to get
You have to read the entire thing.
We have to read the
It
entire-
was on page, I'm gonna see if you know where it is.
Oh, I know.
And I
But I can't tell you.
I
Tell you
corrected the
should tell
spelling with staff and we moved it forward.
So,
Right, see,
we're
Patty's
approved.
on it.
I don't know, staff took it out, we corrected your spelling error.
Call it, there's a certain trend now with software companies and app developers where they'll hide little messages in their code. And if you happen to find it, you get a prize. I think that's a good. It's like, well, it's like a virus.
No, it's
called something else.
chocolate in our budget binders.
I've done it for years and I've only
Keep
been.
on giving. Easter egg. It's called an Easter egg.
I've done it for years and it's only been found once. It's on here.
There you
It's
go.
chocolate in our budget binders that we like. Is there chocolate in
Exactly,
it?
yeah, when Connie comes with the big budget, she has to bring us chocolate. Oh, hello, did you bring
Sorry,
chocolate?
I just had a handful of chocolate M&Ms.
And
I
you
had
ate
to
them.
rush down here because you didn't do rock fall.
And you forgot them. We did Rockfall.
We did it, we burned through it.
You guys are
Okay,
fire
thank
today.
you for being here. Let us hear this.
Okay, for the record, I'm Leslie Lamont, Senior Planner in the Community Development Department. And this is Glenn Horn and Scott Broughton, the applicant's representatives for the Chamonix Homeowners Association, and they have submitted an affidavit of public notice for the file. And the applicant is requesting a major amendment to the PUD activity envelope and site plan review to expand the existing residences and renovate the building's exterior. The applicant obtained a GMQS allotment for 6,000 square feet, and this additional floor area will be used to expand the residences, and it will be divided amongst the various units. Each property owner will make their own improvements within their own time frame. La Chamonix was built in 1968 and is located directly across Maroon Creek Road from the Highlands Village parking lot. It is perched on top of a steep bank overlooking Maroon Creek. It was rezoned to multifamily in 2012, which eliminated the nonconformity of the building. Planned unit development was approved in 2014, and a PUD guide was developed as part of that PUD process. That guide identified how and by how much individual units could be expanded. The total square footage assigned to each dwelling unit is 2,855 square feet. The GMQS application identified the specific amount of new square footage each unit could achieve, and that square footage varies from 0 to 1,083 square feet, depending upon the existing configuration of the unit. After the GMQS allotment review, which has occurred, activity envelope, site plan, scenic review, and a major amendment to the PUD are required, and that's what's before you all today. So a major amendment to the PUD is required because the amount of the square footage that's being added increases the existing floor area of the entire building by more than 5%. The applicant has provided an amended PUD guide, which is in your packet attachment D. And changes to the PUD guide are relatively, even though it doesn't look like that because I gave you guys the red line copy, the changes are minimal and they reflect this approval. And they reflect the allotment of 6,000 square feet. A significant aspect of the PUD review is architectural review because of the scenic issues right on Maroon Creek Road, particularly given its location in Maroon Creek Road. The height of the building will meet the 28-foot limit established by the PUD, and the applicant has agreed to maintain only 2 stories in front along Maroon Creek Road. The proposed additions and renovations are primarily within the existing footprint of the building, although some expansions will expand that footprint. Those expansions are in the front yards and will not encroach into the setback from Maroon Creek Road as established in the PUD guide. The size and scale of the building does not change significantly. The submittal of an overall plan is intended to avoid a piecemeal approach to design upgrades. although not every owner intends to make those renovations right now. So I'll let Scott Broughton, the applicant's architect, review the proposed renovations in depth, and I'll let Glenn talk to you more about the history of this project. Hang on. An activity envelope and site plan were approved in 2011 when the HOA proposed a large bank stabilization restoration project. The revised activity envelope is this revised activity envelope that's proposed is very similar to the previously approved activity envelope, but it's been tightened up to reflect the changes that are proposed with this renovation. It's important to note that no work is contemplated nor approved on the steep slopes at the rear of the property. If any work occurs on the rear of the building, the applicant has committed to access the back side of the units from the front of the units and stage from the front parking lot. So nothing will occur on the bank, but if something is to occur on the back side of the building. The property is rated low wildfire hazard and there's no sensitive wildlife habitat within the activity envelope. Staff and the P&Z recommend approval of the major amendment to the PUD and the revised activity envelope and site plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Questions now? Oh, we'll go, let's hear the applicant presentation.
You should just give it a yay.
I don't think I've seen this before.
Well, this is Scott Broughton. I'm Glenn Horn. We represent the Condominium Association, and we've been working at this project for several years. Like Greg, I'm not sure whether you've been involved in any of the reviews, but George, Patty, and Steve have. And the requests are on the screen, and I think Leslie's covered them. I don't really need to get into repeating what she said. Basically, this is the culmination of a long process, and I can quickly just go through this process for you. This project was built in '68, and it was downzoned in '74 with the major county downzonings, which really created problems for Le Chamonix, and that it was condominiumized. It was supposed to be abated by 1979, like a lot of the other non-conforming uses that were affected by that '74 downzoning. In '79, they went through a process which is a special review from the granting an exemption from the abatement provisions of the code. And then after that, whenever somebody wanted to do something to improve a unit or change the facade in any way, it was subject to really a piecemeal review that had to go to the Board of County Commissioners. And I think at a certain point, at the instigation of the board, they said, look, we've had it with doing these individual reviews on units in Le Chamonix, and don't come back until you can come up with an overall plan. And that started in 2011 when we did this bank stabilization, because there was a really dangerous situation in the back in that the walls needed to be stabilized above that steep slope. So that was done. Monty Thompson did the work, and the bank was stabilized, and we started working on creating a new zone for Le Chamonix, the RMF zone, which was similar to the city's multifamily residential zone. So we wrote the zone, it was adopted by the board, and the project was rezoned RMF. And based upon that, we put together a planned unit development application that went through a two-step review. And really that PUD just reflected what was there and allowed the improvement of spaces that were below grade, that were over 5 feet 6 inches in height, could be expanded to legal basement space. But the board said, look, we want to see a plan for the front facade that will all happen at once. It's okay if there will be individual work on the units, but we want it to look like one condominium project. and they said that there would be no increases in height to the building until we had that overall plan. So that's what Scott went about working on, which was not an easy process, dealing with 12 individual owners to find out what they wanted to do. And he was successful in that he came up with a plan that he's going to present to you and explain. We wanted to do some minor expansions, and that's what this application that's before you today proposes. And Leslie went through this site plan and how we made some minor changes to it. I'm not going to get into that, but we can take questions on it if you have them. But the plan led to some changes to the PUD guide where we're permitting some height expansions based upon the drawings that Scott will give you. Everything's within the 28-foot height limit. There are a couple of, there are like 4 or 5 units that are over that 28 feet in height now, and it's really, everything looks the same from the road, 2 stories, but due to the angle of the slope, there are actually some units that are over that, and they're permitted to be over that because of the variations in the PUD. And the floor area is going to be allowed to be increased to 2,855. So there'll be minor floor area expansions. We got a growth management allotment for these. The median size of the expansion is 336 square feet. This chart shows what exists right here. This is what's permitted on each unit. And then here you see the proposed additional square footage that could be built in each unit. And it's not really that great with the exception of unit 2 that can be at 1,083. And I said the median expansion size is around 336. The total expansion of the building would be about 5,614, 100 square feet for the laundry, and we received a buffer allotment of 285 that could be distributed to any of these units. Maybe it won't even be used. So that's the expansion that's being proposed. To kind of summarize where we are, we redlined the PUD guide, as Leslie said. There are really cleanup items in there, and I can turn it over to Scott now so he can walk you through the design.
Can I have a question about PUDs in general? Changes in PUDs generally come forward by the applicant, not like from the county. Can the county request or mandate changes in PUDs? Or would it have to be initiated by the property owners?
Go back.
I think it would depend upon the situation. So as Glenn explained, everybody was coming in piecemealing, and the county said, you know,
Right.
we're done with this. And my understanding in 2014 is the county commissioners kind of directed the applicant to go back. Let's
Right.
look at something that looks uniform, that's not a hodgepodge of
My question is more in general for anyone coming in with the PUD process. Would it be initiated by the property owners, the people who live within that PUD, versus the county coming in and saying, no, we're going to change your PUD?
PUD, if it's been relied upon, is a vested right.
To the,
vested in the ground.
okay, okay, that's all I needed to know. Perfect, thanks. Makes sense to me.
Scott.
All right. As Glenn and Leslie both mentioned, La Chamonix condominiums were built in 1968. Over the last 50-plus years, they've only really gone through basic facelifts of new paint and some upkeep. From multiple meetings with unit owners, it is the consensus that La Chamonix needs to be updated to bring it into current trends. The existing units were built with very small interior spaces and low ceiling heights. From the interviews with each owner, there is a common desire to be able to develop their units in some of the small spaces within their front yard areas, and increase ceiling heights as part of the expansion. The allowable 2,855 square feet per unit represents a minimal 8% increase in floor area over the overall complex, distributed between 11 units. Expansion on the Maroon Creek Road side would be within the front yards and not exceed the approved front setbacks. In this slide, the purple shading indicates the front yard area between the existing building footprint and the front yard setback for the main and upper levels of each unit. The ability for each unit to expand towards Maroon Creek Road is based on the square footage per unit to meet the 2855 square foot and the available area within the front yard. Not every unit would have the ability to maximize full build out in the front yard. So for example, on this slide, the dark purple shading represents the area that each unit could build out per the allowable square footage as compared to the available area, the light purple areas, within the setback at the ground and upper levels. In many cases, the area of the front yard exceeds the allowable square footage of the unit, therefore not allowing full coverage of the front yard area. Let's see if I can blow this guy up. Heights of each unit in the complex are a consistent 18 feet above grade to the finished roof on the Maroon Creek Road side of the complex. We are not asking for any height increases above the allowable 28 feet, as indicated in the PUD, but looking to have the ability to increase low ceiling heights within the units. So in this slide, this dashed line right here represents the existing 18-foot height limits of the existing complex as compared to this higher solid line, which indicates height modifications of several units, both well below the 28-foot height limit. These lower cross sections show existing floor levels and roof heights, along with indicating raised floor and ceiling heights as proposed modifications in a few of the units. Again, staying well below the 28-foot height limit. The homeowners know the complex is in need of updating, and several units have gone through interior remodels. However, the exterior of the complex remains virtually unchanged. We have worked with the Chamonix Design Committee to reach an approved unified concept for updating the units, as indicated in this slide. Our approach was not only to look at what an overall base aesthetic can be for updating the exterior, but to also investigate the full build-out impact with awarded square footages. This slide shows on the left-hand side the base conceptual remodel of existing units with new materials and finishes, but none of the square footage expansions. As compared to the same units on the right side, these indicate fully built out with new square footages and increased heights, but maintains the same unified aesthetics. Included in this proposal would be updating new signage, mailboxes, and trash enclosure along Maroon Creek Road. Lastly, the materials we propose would be of subtle earth tones of stone, wood, and stucco with details of concrete elements and steel. We feel this palette complements the surrounding environment and neighborhood. It is the intent with the approval of the PUD amendment to initiate development and construction documents of the base conceptual build-out for pricing to be presented to the Chamonix Board of Directors. The pricing will determine how association assessments will be collected and allocated for construction of the build-out and in what time frame. Currently, we do not know what timeframes will be established, but intend to work with the directors to create a reasonable schedule. Any owners that wish to utilize their awarded square footage to expand their unit would have the option to do so during the base build-out. However, if they choose not to expand, then the base build-out would be done to their unit with options for future modifications. That's what I've got. Thanks.
Question.
Patty?
Landscaping, there are some existing large trees. Are they still there?
Yes.
Are they going to stay there?
The ones that are outside the building setback will remain. If they've got anything within that front yard area, if they want to expand, those would be subject to mitigation.
And then replacements as able to.
Correct.
Because it's a nice, clean design, but it needs to be a little messy. We need some trees and stuff out there. We need some green, but I think that you'll probably, and they will probably want it. I'm also concerned about drainage. Is there a specific drainage plan? Because we know that steep bank drops right to the Maroon Creek, and anything else would flow out into Maroon Creek Road. So I was trying to find it in here. Is that the one you hid for me?
There's nothing existing, Patty, but through the normal permitting process,
You'll
we
look
will
into
be
that.
required to provide engineering drawings and things like that.
I just
So-
want to make
so
sure
they'll
because that could be a
require-
little sketchy there.
Yeah, they'll require, because the idea is that this thing, and I think Glenn hinted on it, is that it would be a unified, cohesive development, I think is the overall, would establish the overall drainage plan.
Okay.
And if you look at, in the reso, condition 4B, as part of building permit, they need to submit a drainage and erosion control
Yeah, I just
plan.
wanted to know if there was any conceptual.
Any addition on top of
Okay.
that.
The last thing I have, and due to the entourage sitting behind you, it would be great if this site was appropriate with their roofs and stuff for solar, but it's a little shady in that part of town.
Yes.
And I don't think you have access down for any kind of hydro to Maroon Creek at that point, so, but just anything that, and you'd be building to, our new energy code may or may not be in place at that point and apply to this, but anything that looking at the energy efficiency in these units would be great, and I'm sure with new windows and doors and all that, we'll be accomplishing some.
Yeah, and I think as, with the base complex, there won't be necessarily a lot of fenestration work, but as each unit, if they're allocated some square footage and they choose to develop, then they will have to definitely meet
Perfect.
all those current requirements.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm looking at the square footages, and wondering about the 5% buffer. All of them are given adequate square footage to get up to the 2855 square feet. So there's 285 square feet left over, which you theoretically couldn't give to any of them if they're limited to the 2855.
The county code at the moment, Steve, is that even like a trash enclosure, the square footage is the overall development on the property, and so even trash enclosures will count as some square footage. The buffer was kind of factored in. It's a very small common laundry facility. We would expand that probably 100 square feet. And then I think the trash enclosure, which would incorporate recycling abilities, may end up, I think, eating up potentially the rest of it.
Right, eating
That would count in that extra 285
That
square
buffer,
feet.
exactly.
Then there's a unit like Unit 4 has 19 square feet extra. Nobody's gonna do an addition to add 19 square feet.
You never know,
They
that window
can't really
box.
give it to their neighbor because their neighbor's already
Correct.
has enough to get to the maximum. Could they give their 19 square feet to the laundry room and make it bigger perhaps? I'm just curious about.
The way we've tried to approach it is equality, is everybody now can build 2855 square feet. No, you can't give 19 to your friend or, to the complex. This is yours to hang on and hold for however long you want it.
Covered
Okay,
porch.
so at some point there might be something they're
Might,
gonna scoot a wall out a little bit or something.
little bay window in the kitchen or something, who knows?
Yeah, okay.
I was just thinking when you mentioned the recycling, the trash sheds, the topic lately has been how the recycling is overwhelmed everywhere. So you're thinking about that expanding to accommodate an extra bin or a larger bin or something as we move more toward composting, recycling. Super important, and it all seems to be overwhelmed right now, at least where we are in our rural area. And Patty talks about how their recycling gets overwhelmed. So make sure you size that rightly, maybe in conference with our haulers and our landfill. Just a thought. I wanted to say that Glenn mentioned that, maybe I hadn't been here for any of this discussion, but I did want to say I've known Scott since we were Cub Scouts together. And I haven't seen him in almost that long.
So you should
since high
definitely
school.
recuse yourself.
Yeah, I think I've known Scott so long that I have to recuse. I won't. I refuse to recuse. Okay. Anyway, full disclosure. Didn't recognize him. He looks younger than
I
me.
think my mom was the Cub Scout leader, too.
Could have been. Yeah, cupcakes. I
So
remember
I
cupcakes.
have a procedural question,
Yeah.
though. This is a one-read public hearing, is that correct? Yeah. Always need to clarify that.
I appreciate that.
Okay, anything else? As this is a public hearing, do we have anybody here who would like to speak about this topic? Speak now, or we're going to close it up. I'm going to close it down. I don't see anybody here to talk about this topic, so we're going to close the public hearing, bring it back to our board.
I've asked my questions.
Steve's asked his questions.
I'm good. I have no problems with this.
George, are we okay?
Yep.
Do anybody would like to
I will
make
make a motion. I will make a motion to approve a resolution for the Chamonix Planned Unit Development Major Amendment Activity Envelope and Site Plan Review.
We have a second. Further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Great.
you, gentlemen.
Thanks
Nice
for
to
coming.
see you.
Thank you. See you. Great.
Good to see you. See you in
Have
another
those families
35
for us?
years.
You're supposed to do this, aren't you?
Right, we have a hand, don't we have a handshake? I don't remember what it is. I never made it past the Cub Scouts.
The hands don't work anymore. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Bye. Nice to see you, Scott.
Thanks.
Okay, so now, what's next on the agenda? Should we take a long break or anything?
No, let's keep moving. We've got this great audience
Okay,
before
I've got to
us.
go here and find it on my, where is it?
You're on land
Here
use
we've got,
actions.
Are we still in land use actions? We want to keep that, or we want to
Yeah,
take a?
yeah.
Okay, we're going to finish our land use actions.
And then we'll go to the,
Resolution allocating 2018 rural area residential GMQS allotment for a new lot.
We need to do the
oh, we need to
solar
move that.
project continuation.
Oh, sorry, God, I had it scratched off. Pardon me. We have this is the resolution approving Aspen Consolidated Sanitation District Solar Project Special Review Use Activity Envelope and Site Plan and granting a permit for activities of state interest, site selection and construction of major facilities of a public utility, and for an area of state interest, area around an airport. This was continued from August 28th.
And we're continuing to,
We're going to
John?
continue it to November.
The discussion was to continue it to November 16th at a meeting to start at 10 a.m.
And
Will you confirm November 16th?
what?
Or
Let's-
Is it
13th.
Wednesday?
It's Wednesday, the 13th. I think it's the November 13th. Just want to confirm that date. We did this before, but we got,
13th is a Wednesday.
Oh, I apologize, 13th, I was on the wrong.
So-
We keep
Well, last time
doing
you had
that,
it scheduled
yeah.
for October 13th, which was a Sunday, so that was, we were getting there.
we'd be done by now.
So I will do a motion, well, we have a public hearing though, we need to open that
Public
and
hearing, anybody
continue
here
it.
to comment on that? This is your opportunity. If I seeing none, I'm going to bring it
So
back.
I will make a motion to continue this item to a special meeting on Wednesday, November 13th, starting at 10 o'clock. We're planning the whole day for this exciting solar project hearing.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second?
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That's, okay, so now regarding these last two, can we insert our guests here now? Or do we want to finish?
Well, we've got staff here, and it's only going to take us a second, I think.
Okay,
isn't
then
it?
I'm going to go we're going to stay on the
Want
land
you
use. We're
guys
going to
to see
get to
the
you guys.
process.
Sit tight.
The motion this morning was to have their item
All the way
last on the
Yeah,
agenda.
okay, you guys are at
Yeah,
the
and
end, so we got to keep
you
moving
guys
here.
did take a vote on that, so.
All right, so
Keep
up
rolling
next,
through.
resolution allocating 2018 rural area residential GMQS allotment for a new lot to JCH LLC. And Suzanne is here to talk about that.
Thanks, Greg. Suzanne Wolf. So we were at the last meeting where the scores were forwarded from the P&Z. There was a request at that meeting to include the score sheet or the tally sheet from the P&Z, so I attached that to the memo. It's a 8250 square foot allotment for a new lot off of Midnight Mine Road. It's a property that's being subdivided. You will see the subdivision application at a later date. But at this point, essentially, the growth management process, now that the appeal period has expired on the scoring, it basically directs the BOCC to grant the allotment. So that is the resolution that's in front of you today.
Great, thank you. So we've seen this.
And these are not public hearings.
Not a public hearing.
I'm going to do a motion to adopt a resolution allocating 2018 rural area residential GMQS allotment for new lot to JCH LLC.
Second.
We have a second and further discussion.
I just want to note that looking at the scoring sheet, this is the property we're having a disagreement with them on a water right issue, and they got the maximum, well, I think that's the maximum score. They got a score of 2 for water resources, maximum score. They got the maximum score for water resources. I maybe would disagree with that score in light of the disagreement we're having on the water rights. However, I would note even if they didn't get any points for that, they still would meet the minimum threshold for the GMQS allotment. I think I personally would have scored them lower, knowing what I know.
Well, except
on
we
the
don't do
water.
the scoring, P and Z does the scoring,
I
right?
know that, I know
Yeah,
that, yeah.
so, I don't know if there's any action we can take about that at this time.
Other discussion? Okay, then we can call this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the next one. Forwarding 2019 rural area residential GMQS scores for additional floor area for Helvetica endeavors. Suzanne.
Going to do that one too. So this one is in its first step with you, which is when we forward the scores from the P&Z, then it will come back for a separate resolution on your part to grant the allotments. I will note that my P&Z reso apparently had numerous errors because I was doing a very bad cut and paste job. So I will apologize that there seems to be confusion between Helvetica and JCH and things that I will clean up in the P&Z resolution and in the board resolution. But in this case, the request is for an additional floor area allotment. This is a property in the rural area off of Castle Creek Road. They also met the threshold for the scoring, and there were no other competing applications for this. So no action required on your part at this time, and we'll come back at your next meeting for you to grant the allotment.
I have a
Patty?
question. Where's Hall Drive?
Hall Drive is, so the property is just upstream from the music school campus, is the simplest way.
Oh,
Hall
okay.
Drive is
Carter
the
Hall's-
left-hand
Carter Hall's
to
place.
right.
Carter Hall's
It's
down,
the-
okay.
yep.
Yeah.
So it's at the
So-
bottom of Castle. Okay.
Okay, so no action
No
required?
action today.
Just
Okay.
Move it forward to see if
Just gonna
there's any
move it forward
appeals.
to the next go-around. All right then, with that, we're ready for the next event. I have to go back and see what it is again. I was about to see what.
It's the main event.
The main event, thank you. Let's see, this is a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency and requesting regional collaboration to counter climate change and preserve a flourishing environment. And Zach Hendricks is here, and he has guests. Okay, take it away, Zach.
I'm losing my voice, so if I squeak or it cuts out, I apologize beforehand.
And we noted the stitches over the eyebrow.
It's from rugby. I did not get in a fight.
That is, rugby is a fight, isn't it? Isn't it like an organized fight?
A bit more controlled.
No, I wouldn't call it organized.
Okay.
So 2 weeks ago, the youth behind you came in and asked you to declare a climate emergency. So last week, I came before you and I presented the resolution that you have with some mild modifications that you requested in the last work session. But just to reiterate some of the facts behind it, the valley has seen a 1.1 degrees Celsius increase since 1940, and 0.8 degrees of that have been in the last 40 years alone, and that's according to the Institute of Global Change, the Aspen Global Change Institute. So that's where that came from. So it really is exponentially increasing lately, and we're hoping that with this resolution, it will be a policy initiative from you to allow for you to take further action going forward with the rewriting of the climate action plan and any other actions that you might wish to take. Patty had pointed out that the upload of the resolution had a few typos. The degrees Celsiuses did not come through. Jeanette has made that correction, as well as adding signature lines for all of you, not just for the chair.
Yeah, I'll add, I requested, and I want to make sure it's okay with the board, that we all five of us, I think this is an important enough issue that all five of us sign on to
Great.
it.
I appreciate that.
So
Thank you.
thanks, Zach.
I don't know if you want me to reiterate much more of what I did over the work session. I think it'd be far more powerful to hear from the youth behind me.
Great. I'd love to invite some of the folks to come up. If you want to come up and say a few words, we're going to limit you to 3 minutes each at the most. And I think a few of you want to say something. Is that right?
Just let them
come
know what
on
they
up.
have to do.
We've got, you'll have to come up and sit and by one of the microphones and a chair. You can use all these chairs.
Just make sure the red light's on your mic.
And identify yourselves when you talk, and we'll take it away when you've got your photographer here, I see. Hi, Charlotte. All right.
Okay. Hello, and thank you for this public comment opportunity today.
Tell me your name, just to start with names, sorry.
Okay. My name is Lily Justice, and I'm 14 years old.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Well, as you're all going to speak, I just want you to identify when you start talking. Thank you.
and thank you for considering declaring the climate emergency a group of us requested 2 weeks ago. In light of this subject and for the public record, we would like to read Greta Thunberg's speech that she delivered to the United Nations Climate Action Summit in New York City on Monday. Her words are powerful and relevant, and we feel her address is good to have on our minds as we consider our local policy actions.
I'm Willow Postman, and in the words of Greta Thunberg, this is wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back at school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for help. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I am one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and the fairy tales of economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying you're doing enough, when politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight?
I'm Elsie Weiss. You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency, but no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that, because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees Celsius, and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points in most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that barely exist.
Hi, I'm Katie Mae Fix. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us. We who have to live with these consequences. To have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees global temperature rise. The best odds given by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The world has 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit, back on January 1st, 2018. Today, the figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emissions level, the remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within less than 8.5 years.
Hello, my name is Esker Renau. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable. And you are still not mature enough to tell it is like it is. You are failing us, but young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now is where we draw the line. The world is waking up. Change is coming, whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
That's Greta's
Don't
comment.
go. I got a question.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you all,
George,
for your interest and your enthusiasm for this critical issue. This is an emergency resolution. I'm just curious if each of you could just give me one example of what you would do or are doing in your own life to address climate change.
Okay. So, as you know, a few days ago, actually, we had our Global Climate Strike Day where we skipped school and decided to march to City Hall and give a few speeches. And I believe that was very effective, and we raised a lot of awareness to climate change.
Personally, we have solar panels on our homes, and we're trying to get the school to start composting.
At my house, we take short showers, we hand wash our dishes, and we try not to use our lights a lot, and we keep our air conditioning off in the summer.
I turn off all my lights and I'm not using them and try to use the least amount of plastic I can.
I speak in front of others, trying to motivate them and inspire them to act on behalf of the Mother Earth.
Great, thank you. So those are very simple solutions that we all can be doing, right?
Yeah.
Nothing very complicated about that.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Comments? Steve?
There is a book that I really like, and I refer to it quite often. It's from Project Drawdown, and it's the 100 most effective things that we as humans can do to reduce our carbon footprint on Earth. And I would recommend that you look at that book at the library. Maybe you have it in your school, and get a copy of it if you can. It's incredibly interesting book with lots of ideas that you wouldn't necessarily think would be important for reducing, fighting against climate change. For instance, one of the things that is recommended that is really important to help us solve the problem is education of girls across the world is one of the most important things that we can do to reduce our impact on climate change. And if you think about it, there's a lot of countries where girls, it's really hard for them to even go to school. Here we just accept, all kids go to school, obviously, but other parts of the world that's not true. So it's like realizing that we have to use all the people of the world to help solve this problem. We can't leave half of them out who happen to be females, have to be part of the solution too. So if you can find that book, Drawdown, I'd recommend taking a look at it. It's very interesting.
Well, first of all, I'm going to comment what Steve said, because it's one of those things, be careful what you ask for. You get all these great women involved, and they're definitely going to change the world. So in the future, probably not too far future, this board will be comprised of very strong, motivated, world-changing women. Sorry, gentlemen. And on the note of books, my favorite book is The Alchemist. The Alchemist is about turning lead into gold. And let me tell you, it's also about following your dreams. And if you live life on the straight and narrow pattern, and you never deviate, and try something, you never realize what difference you can make and what you can change in the world around you. It's a great book. I usually give it to people who graduate. So when will you guys be graduating from high school?
2023.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. All right, thank you all. This really made a difference. My children and my grandchildren will be proud to stand with you, as will I.
If I could, I just want to take a section of this resolution which Zach has put together for us. And I'm going to read a little bit of it. It says, whereas the imminent impacts of already occurring climate change requires increased resiliency measures to provide for and mitigate negative effects on public health, and whereas the implementation of the Pitkin County Climate Action Plan is occurring on a daily basis, with some of the significant actions being the revision of the building code to work towards net zero energy use, the revision of the land use code to encourage installation of renewable energy technologies, the installation of solar energy systems on new county buildings and the retrofitting of existing county buildings, the emphasis on energy conservation in all Pitkin County facilities, working toward the diversion of construction and demolition waste and debris from the Pitkin County Solid Waste Center, the continual support and development of regional mass transit efforts and transportation solutions, and the electrification of Pitkin County's vehicle fleet. And whereas restoring a safe and stable climate requires emergency mobilization across all sectors to rapidly draw down or remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere and to implement measures that will reach zero greenhouse gas emissions, the BOCC finds that it's in the best interest of the citizens of Pitkin County to approve this resolution. Just wanted you to say that every time anybody comes to us now, I think the first thing on our mind is The phrase that I keep coming back to, and I ask it uncomfortably to people sometimes, is, what is your climate action plan? The way George just asked all of you, what is your plan? And let's get the action back in climate action, or let's put action into climate action. And I think that would be I want to make a button that I can wear that asks people that, what's your climate action plan? Maybe that's how we can all greet each other for ongoing. So with that, I want to thank you all for coming in and reading those words. It's hard to sit and listen to that words as someone who's contributed to both the problem and the solution as the best I can. But we're all part of the problem. We all need to be part of the solution. So with that, I'd entertain
Well, there may be other members of the public who want.
Oh, do we have other people who'd like to speak? Yes, we could bring someone up if you would like to come up.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for coming. I think if you could, we're going to probably make room, and we may have a couple of other comments if someone else would like to come up and say something.
And the kids should stay and listen to some of the other comments.
They'll stay,
If
they're
you could,
not going anywhere.
but you'll have to come up to the microphone if you'd like to make a comment. So I need to clear a mic. Thank you for everybody for making that presentation.
Get your daughter out.
My name is Lori Burland Winterman. My father brought me here luckily in 1955 when I was a little younger than you kids. And I want to tell you, I do believe in climate change, but I don't believe in the emergency. If you look at our gorgeous, where we live, how many of you kids still have mom and dad drive you to school every day? How many of you kids have your own cars? And I want you to know that we can all be part of a solution, but don't think the earth is ending. In 1967, when I got to college, Paul Ehrlich came out as the first Earth Day. I'm sure you've all heard of Earth Day in April, every April now. And he said the earth was going to end in 5 years. So I didn't have children. And 5 years later, the earth was still here, and the rivers were cleaned up, and the air was cleaned up, just like Aspen. I also lived in Minnesota. And I want you to know, I did have children. And then in 1970s, Time magazine, which is now defunct, you may have seen it sometime in your parents' home, had a cover that said that America was going through an ice age and we'd all freeze to death. Literally cover over New York and everything else. That never happened. I'm sure you also saw Al Gore's movie called An Inconvenient Truth. Those things have not come to fruition. Now, the latest one is a bartender named Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. She's a bartender. Now she's a congresswoman. She's telling you the earth is going to end in 12 years. Please don't be panicked by this.
She should be addressing the board.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I have to address the board, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't want these children to think that the earth is going to end. And I'm telling you, with all these things in your lifetime and my lifetime, because we're all from the same era, the earth is, our Aspen is cleaner than it's been. If you test our rivers, I read all this and what everybody's doing to make it better for us, and I thank you. But please don't think that you're going to have to kill yourselves or die, because just do what you need to do to help us. Turn off your lights earlier. And you know the other thing the scientists are saying? Please plant trees. I'm sure you've seen the cycle of science. It shows that trees absorb carbon dioxide. You can do stuff that's so special, and it could be from your high school, and you guys can be part of that. Let's plant 1,000 trees in our valley. Then you would absorb carbon dioxide and absorb some of the backup of traffic on Main Street every day. There are solutions that are very simple, and I think that we as adults have to stop scaring these children and come forth with good suggestions so that we can all be good citizens. And I really want you to think about that. You are so lucky to be here, to create in this beautiful society. Just do the best you can. It's not going to end. Please don't think it's going to end, and just participate in the solutions. I thank all of you for participating.
Lori, thank you for that comment. That's important words. Do we have any other public comment? Is anyone else here who would like to say something? Okay, going. There's one more.
Would you let me have 2 bites there?
Yeah, if you're within your, on this topic, yes, if you're talking about this particular topic, come on up, let's do it.
I would like the
Your name
board.
for the
Once again, sorry.
Ziska Childs, hi.
And you're addressing us, by the way.
And I'm addressing the board.
Thank you.
And this is specifically for the members of the board. I would respectfully ask that the board ask our young presenters here to give their ideas of what Pitkin County could do, as opposed to what they are doing personally, what Pitkin County could do to work on this climate emergency. Thank you.
Thank you,
So I
Ziska.
think, Greg, you read what Pitkin County is currently doing.
Right, I did.
And I just want to, Pitkin County, and Pitkin County's climate action plan is included, attached. What I think is amazing that Pitkin County has done, and then we'll see if you guys want to add, I guess, if we want to entertain that. But we've created a plan where departments within Pitkin County can actually do something. It's not just a plan that says we would hope to, we pick specific departments like Fleet is where our vehicles are, and ask them what they can do to help us with climate change. And they have started to integrate hybrids and electric into our county fleet. So we have started that process. We're continuing that process. That those numbers of those vehicles are increasing in our county fleet. We've asked other departments what they can do, what they can look at individually, the landfill, what we can do for recycling and composting and reusing, and so we've asked specific departments that can actually do something. And then with that energy and enthusiasm, every year when we review the climate action plan, we're rolling that over into what other departments can look and say, look what Department A did, we're Department B, and let's bring Department C in and see what we can all do together. We are taking actions. There's more we can do. We're looking at increasing our efforts and our energy in doing that, so that we can make more concrete steps into the future of preserving the healthy air and the clean water that we have here, and our natural forests and the environment in Pitkin County, but throughout. It has to extend. It can't just be, it's not going to be solved just here. It has to be solved globally. Sorry.
That's fine, thank you. I think that during some of the previous speeches and comments from kids on our previous conversation, there were some concrete requests, and I think one was electrifying fleet, reducing meat consumption. Help me out here. We had just what the kids were suggesting. I don't think they suggest land use or more use of solar, flying, carbon offsets, maybe fly less. So I think those suggestions have all been made to us, and we can certainly incorporate them. The thing I'd want to point out is that yes, we need to hear this, and the entire community does as well.
Do you have any more ideas?
And I think, and certainly we're open to more ideas, and if you have them, you can send them, bring them to us. But I also wanted to dwell on something Lori brought up, which is important, that being resilient and understanding that we're not talking about the end of the world in 5 years. Don't give up your hope. This whole thing is about applying hope and applying positive energy toward solving some very vexing problems. And so I know you'll all do that, moving forward with compassion and hope and optimism, because that's what it's going to take. And hopefully we'll all be along with you on that. I'm closing the public comment if there is no more. I don't think there was. Just want to make sure. Steve?
One of the city councilmen made a comment about making a declaration of climate emergency, and he didn't want it to be a hollow statement with nothing behind it. It's kind of a meaningless statement. We are joining I think over 1,000 communities around the world who have made a similar declaration. And I want to note that this actually gives us some teeth going forward, that when we make a decision, we can cite this declaration of climate emergency as one of our whereases in a resolution, as a reason for taking actions that we might not have taken otherwise, or we might take a stronger action than we would have otherwise without having passed this resolution. So I think it really is an important statement that we'll be able to use and refer to over and over again going into the future. Also, I'd like to note that many parts of we don't see the effects of climate change here as much as some other parts of the world are seeing them. My daughter, for the last 11 years, has been teaching school in native villages along the Bering Sea in Alaska. And every one of the people living in those villages knows that climate change is happening. Their permafrost is melting. People were using the permafrost as their storage area for their freezer to keep food frozen. And their food is starting to spoil now because the permafrost is melting. Some of the villages are being washed away by the Bering Sea because they no longer have sea ice there to protect the land during the winter when they have bad storms. So like the village of Shishmaref, one of the villages my daughter would go to every year several times, the gravel bar that the village is built on is being washed away by the ocean. So it's places like that, low-lying areas that are close to the ocean are much more prone to damage, and there are many low-lying islands and areas, coastal areas around the world that are going to be underwater. There's probably nothing we can do at this point to stop that from happening. So other places are, they're losing their land. This is really affecting them a lot more than it's affecting us here in Aspen. So it is a climate change emergency for the whole world, maybe not as much for right here in this part of Colorado because we don't feel the effects as much. But we know the effects are happening other places, and that's why all of us want to take this action and declare the emergency. So thank you for bringing it to us a couple of weeks ago. This is like, I see this as a start of a good partnership because we want to keep hearing from you going forward in the future.
Something we talked about before you all got here was we're signing new car rental agreements with our airport. And it turns out we can't just demand that they all rent only electric cars as much as I would like to, or hybrids. But we can move them and hopefully nudge them and incentivize people to demand that they want to rent an electric car when they come here, or maybe make it easier for the rental companies to be able to bring them in. They're skeptical that anybody wants them. So hopefully we can change public opinion and people will want to go for one of the many new four-wheel drive, perfectly capable winter electric vehicles that are coming. That would help us. So we are taking action. We're moving it as quickly as we can while being prudent and knowing what our capabilities are. The other thing that has come up, I think somebody requested in one of our previous meetings, were that we work toward eliminating single-use plastics. All you have to do is walk into one of our supermarkets and you see how much waste plastic there is. You buy some hot food and it comes in a plastic container which is disposed of moments after you consume the food. It just isn't necessary to do that. And I'd like to see the county move forward on however we can, maybe with the contracts we have at the airport, our concessionaires, and other places where we can make a difference, is start moving them toward compostable, reusable, containers, so we can get off of the single-use plastic. The final thing that was brought up by, I think, Katie Maven and Avery last week, 2 weeks ago, was that we signed on to the resolution HR 763, which is about building a renewable energy economy. And I think that this is something that the public can certainly join us in doing, and I believe we're already signatories, or we've discussed it as members of and signing on to with the Citizens Climate Lobby and some of their resolutions, and that I think we are moving forward with all that. So we are taking actions. Is it enough? It never feels like enough. All we can do is invite and ask and beg people to join us, but I think we're moving in the right direction. And with that, I think we're done with public comment, but thank you.
Thanks, thanks.
I'd
Lynn.
like to call a vote on this. Are we ready for a
Did somebody
vote?
make a motion?
Didn't you make a motion yet?
I don't
It's
think
been
we
so
do have
long,
a
we're giving
motion.
speeches.
George, do you want the owners to make this motion as our core representative?
Okay, let me get to the wording. We have the wording on this. Let's see, I'd like to make a motion approving, it's a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Pitkin County, Colorado, endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency and requesting regional collaboration to counter climate change.
I'll second.
We've got a second. Further discussion?
I'll second also.
Another second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
That
it.
may be the fastest we've ever passed anything. The time you brought it to the time. Thank you for coming in. I
Thanks,
appreciate
guys.
you waiting for us.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you all for your comments. Let's see, we're going to go to open discussion, board discussion now.
I have an open discussion.
Patty?
I had a call from someone concerned about destruction of sage habitat at the airport due to the expansion of parking lots. I don't think you'll have the answer for me, but I'd like to find out how much sage and habitat we are taking out by removing the berms to expand the parking lot.
And we should note, while you're on the topic, that those berms were actually put in when we put the parking lots in to begin with. So these aren't features that have been there.
Right,
since.
right, and that person who I got the call from works at the airport. So, and was concerned about parking, so now we're trying to solve a problem, and he feels we're creating a different problem. So if we could just get some information, that would be great.
We can follow up on that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other open discussion? No?
I don't know, maybe John Peacock left some?
Yeah, he had to get on a call, so we kind of tag teamed it here, but he was needing to get on a phone call. I believe there was a letter here to the Department of Local or of Labor and Employment for your signature. So just
Okay.
want to make sure we get that
We'll get that.
signed.
Which one is that regarding?
I don't know.
Labor and employment?
Have I seen this one?
The family,
Oh,
about the family.
that went to labor and employment, okay.
Yep.
We're good,
Right,
because there's a
got it.
deadline, I think, of the 22nd.
And this is this the one, is this a copy or is this the one they need?
That's it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for coming. Okay, I'm signing it. Ta-da. All right, that's it for open discussion. I think we're going to
Need a motion?
need a motion to adjourn.
No, we need a motion to go to executive
Oh,
session for the
thank you.
purposes of request for easement over county property, CRS 24640224B.
Got a motion?
Second.
A second, we got a second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you, Grassroots.
Okay, thanks, Grassroots, we're done, our regular meeting.
Did you come just to hear us do that?
No, I'm staying for executive session.
All right, excellent.